Here we go as the Sports Bash comes to you live on a Tuesday. I am Mike Gill, Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, just another day in paradise. Here we go as Phillies and Yankees get ready to start tonight. It's NOLA Day. The significance of that I'll have for you coming up today on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Also, NBA Finals Game 6 could be the last basketball game of the season tonight, which is sad. Hate when the season comes to a close. Big hoop head. Love watching the game. And with that, I think the Bucks will win tonight. And I think tonight will be the final NBA game of the season. The draft is coming up here shortly. You do have the Olympics, so we will have some more hoops, although we think we might have the Olympics. Did I speak too soon? There is some talk that they might cancel the Olympics. A last-minute decision could be coming on the Olympics. They might actually cancel the Olympics. We'll see. But if they don't, we'll have some basketball there. We'll have the draft, and then the summer league will be here, and then the league will be starting back up. So there's a lot of hoops still to come, even though tonight could be the final NBA basketball game of the season. Phil's tonight, as we mentioned. A lot of Eagles stuff to get into today as well. Camp 1 week from today for the Eagles. They will open up camp on Tuesday of next week, and we will have full coverage for you here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. What's going on? Amir, who is checking in on the video stream, checking in from Sugar Land, Texas, watching the show. I know Amir used to live in the area. Is that where the Sugar Land Skeeters play? I think the minor league or is it an independent league team or a minor league team out there? I think Roger Clemens pitched for them or something like that. Hey, so what's happening today? I do want to start with the fact that, so this morning, we talked yesterday. Jeff Kerr was on the show, and we talked about this last night. You know, the Eagles took down the banner last night of Carson Wentz, right? So they finally take this banner of Carson Wentz down, to which people are now going crazy about what should be up there on the banner. Well, today, the team already replaced the Carson Wentz banner, and it didn't take long, right? One day, the banner comes down, the new one goes up, and they already messed it up. I mean, how do you mess this up? There was only one answer of what should be up on the new banner. And now people out there listening might be like, this is not a big deal. Maybe to you, but if you're watching the social media keyboard warriors out there, this was a huge topic of conversation all day today. To which I'll play along because I think there was only one answer. What should replace the Carson Wentz banner at Lincoln Financial Field? Look, it's fun. It's something to fodder about. We all have an opinion. But to me, there was only one answer to this question, right? I guess you could say the Carson Wentz in Philadelphia era officially came to an end yesterday when they took the banner down. So who or what should replace the image? There was one answer. The Brandon Graham strip sack is the only picture that should have taken over Lincoln Financial Field. It's the only one. It's the only picture that should have been under consideration. On that play, Graham strips the ball from Tom Brady, and Derek Barnett recovered the ball. The play gave the Eagles the ball back and allowed them to run the clock down, forcing New England to use all of their timeouts. Jake Elliott made a 46-yard field goal. Philadelphia 41-33. The Phillies special play is a great memory. It didn't win them the game. That's it. It's the only play that should be considered for two reasons. One, it almost essentially sealed the game for you. Yes, Tom Brady could have thrown a Hail Mary. All they could do was tie the game up. They could not have won on the Hail Mary. So it essentially sealed a victory for you. And two, it is a player in Brandon Graham who was drafted by your team, has spent his entire career with the team, makes the biggest play in the team's history, and it's a picture of him sacking the greatest quarterback of all time. And that's why that's the only answer. It's the only answer you could give me that's acceptable. Brandon Graham's strip sack is what we should all be seeing for the rest of the existence of Lincoln Financial Field. We should be driving in on I-95 and saying, there's the strip sack. It's the one play that brings the most fond memories of any Eagles game I've ever seen. Right? When you see the strip sack, all you ever think is, that won them the game. When you see the Phillies special, you don't say, that won them the game. You say, that was awesome. The strip sack is a more memorable play. It's a dumbed-down version, right? Hey, it's what's the play that you remember the most? Of course it's the Philly special. But the most important play is the strip sack. Period, point blank. To the point where I can't believe they messed this up. So what did they put up in its place? All right. What they put in its place is a stock photo kind of Nick Foles holding up the trophy. So it's not a picture of Nick Foles. It's just Nick Foles' hands. All you see is Nick Foles' hands holding the Lombardi trophy. It's not supposed to be Nick Foles. It's just about the Lombardi trophy. That's it. Now, this is why this picture is a total miss by the team. The Super Bowl happened. Now, I can understand if they won the Super Bowl and then the very next year they put the banner up showing, hey, the Super Bowl will always remember this. You didn't put the Super Bowl trophy up for 4 seasons now after the trophy was actually acquired or won. So you can't put it up now after a 4-11-1 season. It doesn't make any sense. If you would have put it there, yes, it would have symbolized the team winning its first Super Bowl. But they totally messed this up. I'm disappointed in the Eagles. They should have done better. They had a couple of options here, and they messed them up. The options I give are, 1, the Philly special play. Yeah, you could have considered that play. You could have taken players on the current roster, Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, maybe the two of them celebrating a sack together, Jason Kelce celebrating, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, maybe the two of them together. Guys who have been long-tenured players on the current roster. Guys that you don't envision ever playing for another team. That's why I didn't include Zach Ertz here. The team could elect to go with one of their former Hall of Fame players like Brian Dawkins or Reggie White, but that seems a little weak. The play that stands out the most kills 2 birds with 1 stone, putting a current player, Graham, up there and displaying the play that essentially sealed the team's biggest win. That's the way the Eagles should have gone. That's the way they should have played this thing. Instead, we get a generic, it's not even a generic, that's the problem. It's just a picture of Nick Foles' hands holding the Super Bowl trophy. They could have done so much better. Who should have been in the picture? You can let me know. 609-403-0973. Over on the text board, Mike, Brandon Graham strip sack, most important play in Eagles history. Ding, ding, ding. You are correct, sir. There's only one answer to the question. What should have replaced it? It is Carson Wentz. Excuse me. What should have replaced Carson Wentz? It is Brandon Graham's strip sack. It's the only answer to the question. You know it, and I know it. We're all in agreement on this one. It's the only thing we've ever been all in agreement on, and not even sure that we're all agree, but I'm just assuming you have to agree. There's only one answer here. That's it. All right, 609-403-0973 on the text board, 609-403-0973. You know, and I had a lot of people, saying, hey, you could have had like Chuck Bednarik or, one of the really, really old guys that, quite frankly, yeah, you could have. You could have put Tommy McDonald up there or somebody from that era. But come on, let's do it to the one thing that is the most memorable thing that you have, the strip sack. That's what it is. You can get the picture of Graham sacking Tom Brady, and it could forever be up there. How perfect would that be? It makes me sad to know that they bungled this thing. Maybe they'll reconsider. I doubt it. A couple Eagles things. Pro Football Focus ranking the best centers in football. Eagles center Jason Kelce still on that list, number 5 overall. So check that out over at 97.3ESPN.com. They did it basically, the 32 best players, Pro Football Focus did the centers, the guards, the tackles, similar to what ESPN did, but they did it more as a duo. Brandon Brooks was number 8. They said if injury wasn't a factor, you could justifiably argue that Brooks would basically be one of the top players on the list. He was the best guard in 2019, and then the Achilles tendon injury put him out for the entire season. When Brooks last played, he gave up 20 pressures in 16 games and was one of the best run blockers in all of football. They note that if he comes back and is healthy, he will be going from 8 to the top of the list. Now, if you scroll down to check out later, Isaac Seumalo also was on this list. He came in at number 22 for the guards. You go over to the tackles, which I think is an interesting one because obviously Lane Johnson didn't play last year. So where does he land on the list from basically not playing all that much last year? Well, he came in at number 10. They list the injuries over the past few years. In 2018, still looked like a top 10 guy. He went down in 2019. He missed the last few weeks of the season. And then he was the second highest graded tackle in the NFL that season. When he's fully healthy, he should shoot up this list. So many outlets have been doing these rankings, right? Many outlets have been doing the rankings. And I keep looking at the offensive line stuff. And I keep continuing to stress, if the Eagles' offensive line is healthy, what does that mean for the expectations of this football team? I ask you that question. If the Eagles' offensive line is healthy, what does that mean for the ceiling of this football team? 609-403-0973. All right, people are chiming in on the banner. Jay and EHT, got to tell you, Mike, that's the only acceptable answer. Jay, you are correct, my friend. It is the only acceptable answer. I think it's the one thing that a majority of the audience would be in unison on today. Many times people don't agree with me, and that's okay. You don't have to. It's just my opinion. But on this one, it's the only answer I will accept. It's like a spelling bee or in a game show where they have the panel of people that say that answer is unacceptable. We cannot accept that answer. I cannot accept any answer other than Brandon Graham's strip sack. This answer, Kelce in a Mummers outfit. No, that's not making the banner of Lincoln Financial Field. I am not putting that up forever. That is a moment. It's memorable, but it's not part of the game. The most memorable game that the team has ever played. Over on the video stream, Brandon King chimes in, says, yep, forever a legend. BG. Yeah, Brandon Graham has to be the guy up there. Robert is watching on Facebook. He says, I completely agree. That would have been an awesome image to have up there. I hope the Eagles are watching. It's the one thing that most of the listeners and I have been in agreement on in the history of this show. Jeff says, that strip sack saved us in Super Bowl 52. It saved them. It won them the game. If Brandon Graham doesn't get that strip sack, Eagles lose. You can take that one to the bank. If Brandon Graham doesn't get the strip sack, the Eagles lose Super Bowl 52, and we'd be sitting here today on a Tuesday, still no Super Bowl. The Philly special was great. It's a memorable moment, but it didn't win them the game. Coupled with the fact that you sacked the most legendary quarterback that will ever play this game. You got this one that says the strip sack is the most important play in our history, but as a branding expert, I see this as a bad branding move. What they chose is an even worse move. Highlight players past players and replace them each year. Bednarik would have been better than a play from Super Bowl won by the coach that was just fired. Yeah, but the play that you're highlighting doesn't have anything to do with the coach. He didn't call the play. He's not a defensive coach. This is a player that's still on the roster currently, sacking the greatest player in the history of his position and maybe the player of the game. So I don't agree with you there. You might be a branding expert, but I don't like that advice. It could be a replaceable thing, right? As he goes on to say, you're looking at this as a forever thing. It's a banner, a replaceable item. It should be used in that way. That's a banner that you don't need to replace. And if you look at the rest of the banners on that stadium, they're very generic. Many of them are very generic. They don't really have players up there. They have like a kind of wishy-washy offensive line-looking thing up there. They don't really have an actual player. So if you want to have the one that you don't have to think about changing, because Brandon Graham is not going to play for another organization. He will be a forever Eagle, I would imagine. So therefore, you never have to change this one. This is the one that it can be a forever thing. There's no reason to keep asking them to change it. This could be the one that when you drive on I-95, you always will remember that one. That's the one that you want to highlight as, when I go by Lincoln Financial Field, it's the Brandon Graham strip sack. That's the one. Brandon King chimes in and says, if we weren't getting rid of Ertz, his dive into the end zone is a beautiful shot. Have it on my wall. Yeah, I thought about that, but the Ertz thing is so up in the air. You put a picture of Ertz up on there, that would go back to what the guy before you said. You'd have to change that one the minute he got traded. You're going to take him down. Brandon Graham, you don't have to worry about that with. I don't need to see Chuck Bednarik up there. I appreciate that Chuck Bednarik had a great career, but you know what? We need a new generation of Eagle fans here. We keep placating to these guys who are old and screaming at our players. Let's get a new generation of Eagle fans hyped up about their generation of players. Concrete Charlie had his time. TJ Hiles checks in. He says the Philly special didn't win them the game, but it was certainly the catalyst. They fail that attempt. We have what? A 2-point lead going into half. Yeah, it definitely did. But guess what? It didn't win them the game. It was definitely a part of why they won the game. I think it gave them the confidence that, hey, we're going to do this. We can do this. But the strip sack was the ultimate ending to the play, to the game. It was, we got this. Everything we did, and we couldn't get to this guy all game long. I think it was the only sack in the entire game, if memory serves me correct. I think it's the only sack they got in the game. I love the fact that we're bringing this play back up and this game back up. It's giving me some chills talking about it. 609-403-0973. Someone says Dawkins. Yeah, I'm out on Dawkins. You know, I like Dawkins. Great Eagle. He won a Super Bowl someplace else. There's enough Dawkins-like memories and stuff. I want something that is new, unique, different. The uniqueness about this is that's the most important play in the franchise. Though there is not another play that will ever supplant that play because it's the first one. There'll never be another first Super Bowl. That was the first one. Tom in the Villas says, I would prefer a picture of a ring over the picture of the trophy. That's an interesting one, Tom. I don't rip that one apart. I think you can go with the ring and say that would be pretty cool if they just had the ring up there. Mike, I agree. The strip sack sealed it. Yeah, the strip sack to me, I'll go back to this, and I will always argue, it's the most important play in the history of the franchise and will forever be. It can never be more important than the first Super Bowl. That was the play that led them to their first Super Bowl. It's why you don't have to go and back to that other guy who was the branding expert. You don't have to ever take it down because it will always be the most important play ever. 609-403-0973. Dick Vermeil crying? Now I'm out on that one. I don't need to see Dick Vermeil crying up on the board there. That's Schweim. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. Matt Blatt, they want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Frank's got his Phillies mailbag open in about 22 minutes from now. Stick around for that. I think the Eagles got it wrong. You guys seem to agree with me. 609-403-0973. Keep your text messages coming. We got a lot to do today. including a Tuesday with Thompson with the PT tonight. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my friend and buddy, Junior Mejia. He just got named the new Apsagami baseball coach. I got more on that at 973ESPN.com. He actually replaces my other buddy, Mike DeChico, who stepped down not too long ago. And Junior's a great kid, great guy. He's taken over the Apsagami baseball program. So they're in really good hands. Congratulations to Junior. Apsagami's got a good one. Coming up, Frank Close has the Phillies mailbag in about 20 minutes. All right, some more text messages coming in. Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. John from Egg Harbor City says, I like the strip sack from Graham. I agree. However, if I had to give something unique about how about Jason Kelce in the Mummers outfit, greatest speech in a Philly parade ever? Yeah, I mean, I get the whole Kelce and the Mummers thing, but you could be driving down the street, and I'm not saying that it matters so much, but some people at some point might not be old enough to remember that, and they're like, what the hell is this guy doing up in this outfit on the stadium? Like, I think you want it to be something that is recognizable in a branding aspect, similar to what the gentleman was talking about branding before. And he says the generic wishy-washy banners are the ones meant to be permanent. That's why they're not player period specific. This one is meant to be replaceable. They should change it every season. See, I don't know that I agree with that. You can have that thought, and I know you said later on, I just think you're wrong on this one. Anything that banner commemorating Super Bowl 52 has already missed its time. See, I don't agree with that. I think the Lombardi Trophy has missed its time. But the play, I think, stands forever. The trophy thing, the trophy is like a new exciting toy. But eventually the new exciting toy gets replaced by memories. And the memory of that game is, to me, Brandon Graham. The reason, now you pick to change the thing because Wentz left, right? And then you decide, let's just put the Super Bowl trophy from 4 years ago up. That doesn't make any sense. But if you put that play up, it is commemorating not only the play, but it's also a current player on your roster. It's showing Brandon Graham, a guy that's on this team that we think of as a forever Eagle. You don't get too many forever players in your organization anymore. Brandon Graham's probably one of them. Fletcher Cox is probably another one of them. Jason Kelce will be one. I would imagine Lane Johnson could be one. When you have a forever Eagle or forever whatever team you are a fan of, that's why the wishy-washy generic ones are up there. The Eagles don't have enough of those forever players that are good enough to put up there. So they just put a bunch of wishy-washy generic things up there. Do something unique and cool. There's only one most important play in your franchise's history. It'll never be one-upped. The play that is the biggest play in your first Super Bowl, that is the most important play in your franchise's history. It cannot be one-upped. Winning the second Super Bowl will never be greater than winning the first Super Bowl. So the play that means the most to your franchise can be immortalized up on the side of your home forever. And that's why the wishy-washy banner can be, which is meant to be permanent, the one that doesn't have to be replaceable. It can be a forever banner. And quite frankly, I think it should be a forever banner because that play deserves it. Anything else, as Charles Barkley would suggest, is uncivilized. Stan in Galloway says, the trophy is okay as a banner. It can stay up for a time. I do love the strip sack and would have loved to see that up there more than the trophy. I love Graham too, but he's coming to the end of his career. But that's why I think you put him up there, is because he's a forever Eagle. And the play is more important than the player. The player is a forever Eagle. It all ties in perfectly. It's like if Brandon Graham got the strip sack, it wouldn't be the same, right? Or if it was Chris Long or somebody else from that team. Brandon Graham was drafted by this team. It means more. That's why. I like all the engagement on this one, though. It's really, it's good. It's like I feel like football season's here, which sparks like debate and opinions, and you're wrong and I'm right. No, you can think of whatever you want, right? When I'm driving down I-95, which doesn't happen all that often, I don't enter the stadium from 95. I usually get off at, one of the exits right off the bridge. So I don't see this banner all that often. If I'm going to a Sixers game, I'll drive past the stadium. I might catch it a little bit. But that's really it. So when I'm driving on 95, like if I go to the airport, which I don't fly out of Philly all that often either. So this is rare, which that's one of the reasons for me. I want to see this play. I want to see Brandon Graham's strip sack. I don't want it to change every year because I'm only up there on 95, maybe once or twice a year. I want to see that play forever. Right? That's the play that I want to remember forever. And I want to see it as much as I possibly can, which isn't enough because I don't get up there enough. But when I am, the memories of that strip sack is the one thing that I want to see. Now, I don't need to see Concrete Charlie, or I don't need to see somebody that played in a black and white era when the television still didn't have the Kelly green color. No, I want to see something that will be forever explained to everybody. Why is that picture up there? It's the greatest play in the history of the franchise. And it occurred with one of the forever Eagles. Right? Now, this person chimes back in and says, I like your logic on why that play is a cool choice, so why not replace one of the generic ones with the strip sack? That's fine. You want to replace one of the generic ones with the strip sack? I don't have a problem with that. That's just not an option at this point. They didn't give me that option. They took down one. They're replacing it. I'm telling you what to replace it with. What should I replace it with? What would I replace it with? Strip sack. If you want to tell me that, hey, take down one of the wishy-washy generic ones, then sure. Jeff Kerr tweets out 2 minutes ago at Jeff Kerr CBS, the Eagles really have to explain why the new banner is the Vince Lombardi trophy? Really? Yes, Jeff. Yes, they do. There is only one acceptable banner here. BG. That's it. Oh, gosh. I love the fact that we're so passionate about this. It'll make my day for a while. Thank you guys out there. Tom from the Villas sends this in. He says, I think some people are forgetting the Philly special already has a statue. The strip sack should be on the building. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good point, too, is that the Foles strip sack, the Foles Philly special play with Doug Peterson already has a statue out front. So you don't need to put that up on the side of the building either. 609-403-0973. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. We got plenty more to do, including on the other side. I do want to get over to the Phils because Frank Close's mailbag had a lot of questions this week. And it has to do with the excitement of this team. Are you excited about this Phillies team all of a sudden? You'll hear from Dave Dombrowski coming up later on in the show. Pete Thompson, 5 o'clock tonight. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. Back with more. All right, welcome back. Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. NBA Finals Game 6 tonight. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, it's the Suns and the Bucks Game 6. I like the Bucks to win this and close it out tonight. We'll see. I'll do Bet the Game. Jeff Nadeau's here. Regular season MVP odds for next year's NBA. Some interesting ones if we're big prop swap fans over here. You can get Joel Embiid at 8-1 right now. Hold on to that ticket and see if you can prop swap that thing during the course of the season. What's going on, Jeff?
Hello, Mike. How are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, man. I thought maybe that you had your old Miss shirt on today, as I do as well. I thought we could have been like, simpatico.
Little Drazen Petrovic accent for me, man.
Old school Nets right there. So what do you think tonight? You got Bucks winning this thing? You think the Bucks will close this baby out?
I do not. I think the Suns force a Game 7.
Well, you have ulterior motive here.
No, I don't. I would pick the Suns regardless. I think they come to – listen, the last couple of games I think have shown us that this series is very tight. I think the Suns obviously jump out. Bucks have won 3 in a row. But, I mean, each game's been close. Each game has had the Suns up by a decent amount at one point. And things just didn't shake out the way they should have. It was a horrific second quarter in Game 5 for the Suns. I just look at them tonight and I say, the great players always come. They always play. They always get there. And I think Chris Paul, this is a legacy thing for him. It doesn't bode well that Scott Foster's in control of being the ref in this game. Chris Paul has never won in a game ref by Scott Foster,
that's unbelievable.
It really is. But I look at Booker. I think he has a huge game tonight. I think the Suns find a way to go to Milwaukee and win. I think it'll be a great game. I think the 5 is very valuable here. I'm going to hope that the Suns force a Game 7, and that's huge for them because in the history of the NBA, 80% of the Game 7 winners have come at home. So I'm going to lean on the Suns. I think I'll lean on a team that's been good to me all year. I think defensively they come to play and give you something tonight, take some more threes than they've been taking, and Booker goes off.
Yeah, you mentioned it opened at 5. It's pretty much 5 everywhere. I see it at 4.5 at PointsBet, Sugar House, Unibet. But it's 5 for the most part and opened at over under 223. And it's 222, 222.5. That 5 number right there. I got to tell you, man, I think the Bucks are going to do it tonight. I think the Bucks win at home. Bucks in 6. I like the chant. I'm taking the Bucks tonight. I don't know about the 5, but I think the Bucks are the better team now. I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, if they get how Middleton, Holiday, and obviously Giannis have played the last 3 games or so, it doesn't bode well. I mean, 8 needs to be more aggressive. Chris Paul needs to be the Hall of Famer. Is he, though, that guy that just, like Allen Iverson, never wins it? He's a great player, but Barkley, Iverson never gets over the hump. This is probably one of his last opportunities to do so. I just look at a team that I think is really right there in this series and have been right there. So I'm gonna lean on them to hang around and hopefully force a Game 7.
Now I know you like prop swap as much as I do. The regular season MVP numbers for next year are out right now. Kevin Durant 4-1, Luka 9-2, Giannis 15-2, Steph Curry 15-2, Joel Embiid 8-1, Dame Lillard 10-1. If you wanted to get somebody on the, on the low there and hope that they jump in there, you got like Nikola Jokic, who's the defending champ, 12-1, Trae Young 14-1, Devin Booker 20-1, Harden 20-1. Some interesting names a little lower down this list, like Chris Paul 40-1, Ja Morant 40-1, Kyrie 40-1. So who's somebody that you're giving deeper down that list that you can maybe make some money in prop swap?
It's funny you brought this up, Mike. I actually bet this today, weirdly enough.
I did not know this. This is not a planned segment.
No, it is not. We don't talk at all, you and I. I took Embiid. I think, obviously look at where he was this year, how good he was. If he doesn't miss a certain amount of games, he could have been the MVP. And that was with Ben Simmons as his point guard. Think about that.
By the way, Ben Simmons is 80-1 to win it.
Yeah, you might as well burn your money. At least keep yourself warm.
Well, Just for some comparison, Sixers, he's 80-1.
Yeah.
Guys who have been mentioned as trade possibilities like CJ McCollum, 150-1. Who else has been kind of in there? I heard somebody mention Fred VanVleet the other day, 200-1. Drew Holiday, 250-1. Kyle Lowry, 250-1. So Simmons is still more highly regarded than some of those guys.
I just look at what I think will happen, and that's Ben Simmons won't be here anymore, and someone else is going to come in. I only think that's going to improve Embiid's game. He did all that stuff with this current team. I think he has gotten to the point where he is, the best center in the NBA. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He had an unbelievable season. I think the team's only going to get improved, and I think those players that come in, whether it's Lillard or whoever, I think they just get the best out of him, the better than we've already seen. So I think he's probably the favorite going into next season to win.
Now, did you get it at the 8-1 number?
I did, yes.
All right, so that's a good value there.
It is. I'm very happy with it. Again, I think he should probably be a favorite, probably.
I was a little surprised he was. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th on the list there.
Yeah, that's too low.
Fifth on the list.
That's too low. I think he should be right up in the top 2, right there with
I
KD.
agree with you there. Like, to me, at 8-1, with him being the 5th guy on the list, I'm taking some value there. Now, if I'm jumping into a double-digit guy, I'm kind of intrigued by Booker at 20-1 if that team's good again next year, which I would imagine they would be.
Yeah, I like it. I hear what you're saying. He's definitely the guy on that team that has the ability to drop 40.
I'm talking long shot. I'm not saying fake.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Booker, I don't know if he'll ever get the respect that he truly deserves, probably. Is he as good a scorer in the NBA as you could find? Probably. I think he's a lot better than people even give him credit for. You never mention him with Giannis and James Harden and all these different guys. He's kind of on that second level to a lot of people. But yeah, I think if you're looking for value, I think when you come with MVP, it's really a small group of people that I'm looking to bet on. I'm not sure if Devin Booker fits that mold. I just don't think he'll ever get the respect he probably deserves.
All right, I want to get your take on this because you're a passionate Philadelphia guy, right? So did you have an opinion or care in the world about the replacement banner at Lincoln Financial Field?
No, I actually still haven't even seen it.
All right, so they took down the Wentz banner yesterday.
Okay, I saw that they took that out.
They replaced it today, though.
Right.
They replaced it today. Now, I said, Jeff, there's only one acceptable answer as to what the replacement image should be.
Right.
They did not use that image today.
You'd have to fill me in on what they used. Right. I don't.
So they replaced it today. It is a shot. It is not of Nick Foles, but Nick Foles' hands just holding the Lombardi trophy. So this is all you see.
I'll tell you right now, I think that's a fine decision.
You're okay with that?
Yes, I would be annoyed if it were anything else. Listen, Nick Foles doesn't play here, Mike.
No, I'm saying the only acceptable picture for me, the image needs to be Brandon Graham's strip sack. Okay, it's the most important play in the history of the franchise, and there will never be a more important.
No, that's a comparable idea as well. I just think, I think you kind of and look, maybe they're how often do they change that?
That's a good question. Like when they put Wentz up there, I think it was Brian Westbrook before that.
Maybe they're anticipating Graham's not here much longer. You don't want to change it again. He is getting older.
He's a forever. I don't think he's going to play somewhere else. I think he would retire. So he's a forever Eagle. Okay. Yeah. It's the most important play of the history of the franchise. And in the image, you're sacking the greatest quarterback who ever lived. He'll always have that image. When I drive down I-95, I want to see Tom Brady getting sacked.
Yeah, that is true. That is a great point. I am okay with what they did end up doing. I think they just kind of made it a universal thing where 10 years from now, that's still a fine banner. Maybe they just don't ever want to change it again, and that will never have to be changed. And again, I think they were probably a little irritated. Look, I think they thought Carson Wentz would be here a lot longer than he ended up being here.
Facts.
But yeah, you go so fast by the link a lot of the time, I guess I don't really even notice it a lot of the time, but
I say I'm only up there so often. And when I go to a game, I don't typically take 95. The only time I'm on 95 is if I'm going to the airport, which I don't.
Well, see, when I go to the city, I don't either. I usually get on Broad Street and just hit 95 and I go past that. But if I go to the shore from where I'm coming from down past the airport, I go right by it. So, I'm fine with it. I think it represents the franchise well.
I don't. If they would have put it up immediately following the Super Bowl, I think it's a different. You put it up 4 years later after a 4-11-1 season, it kind of feels like blah.
I thought you were going to say you wanted Nick Foles up there, and it's like, come on, Mike.
No.
Nick Foles isn't here no more. He's got a statue here, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't need a Nick Foles. Believe me, I don't need any Nick Foles memorabilia, anything in my in the sight line here. But the fact that it's his hands up there is enough for me. I just think that they could have, like, if the other ones are like generic pictures.
I got a kick out of the one picture someone put up on Twitter of it's the guy that said the thing about Aguilar, the fire guy. Remember in North Philly, he's like, well, we caught him, unlike Aguilar.
Yes. I saw somebody else post a picture. There was a bunch of guys at like a tailgate party. They all had the same T-shirt on, and they're like, in the picture, like, taking the generic white guy picture, like, hey, like they throw those guys up on the screen. Like, there's a whole bunch of fun, but they literally were like, we're taking this one down and this one's right up. And they thought they were going to they had to put out a statement as to why they chose that picture.
Yeah, which is crazy. I feel like it's a universal, just find one to put up. Like, I don't know why you have to.
The Lombardi trophy. Somebody said they could have put the ring up. That would have been cool. Let me ask you this. Phillies make the playoffs plus 275, minus 350. Yay or nay?
That they make the playoffs?
Yep. This is just strictly Phillies to make the playoffs. Yes, plus 275. No, minus 350.
Yeah, I would say I would lean on no there.
Ooh.
I'm gonna surely lay the wood. Listen, the Phillies rotation is not
out. The Mets are in trouble.
Okay, but Mike, first of all, the rotation consists of a guy, Vincent Velasquez, who we have a local team here in this area. They used to play the Surf back in the day, the Barnstormers. They're independent league. I don't know if Vincent Velasquez would start on that team. He stinks.
I'm not a Vince Velasquez
the
guy.
The bullpen blows.
Good plates for me here.
Yeah, no.
All right,
absolutely
here's one for you. You're a betting man.
Yeah.
Dame Lillard, next team if traded. Knicks 5, Sixers 9-4.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the Sixers at 9-4. Listen. Let me ask you, Mike. If you're Damian Lillard and they say to you, "Listen, we're getting the same pretty much offers here. You want to go to Philly or New York?" Not that they would ask him, but if let's say his agent comes in and asks him, "Well, who would you pick?" I'm picking Philly.
Well, yeah,
now I want to play in New York for.
No, exactly. And it's like forever. Like, what is the last free agent the Knicks have been able to lure there? Like Amari Stoudemire?
Yeah, this is now, weirdly enough, with Joel Embiid here, with the culture of this team, and that's one thing that I can say that's successful. I do think they're going to get more players to come here because it's not, it's Philly, but it's so easy to travel nowadays. You're only here during the winter anyway. You got to be here anyway.
Yeah,
I would say that I would want to come here for sure in New York. You got Embiid, you got a franchise player. It's just a match made in heaven. I think Dame Lillard will come here.
That's a great point that you bring up, though, that gets overshadowed in all the mistakes of the process and did it fail or not. It has become a place that people want to play. Like, people say like they would accept a move here. They might not sign here as a free agent, but if they have to be traded, they would like to play with it.
The only thing that the process
point by you.
Thank you. The only thing that the process allowed us to have, the only thing is Joel Embiid. That's the only success that it's had.
Well, but to be fair, you are correct. To be fair, that's what it set out to find was a Joel Embiid. Somebody said yesterday they made so many mistakes. They drafted Noel because now we're hearing the revisionist history of why they trade Drew Holiday because you got Nerlens Noel, and it was you have a known guy, Holiday. You know what he is. You're always like the point was, I don't know what I'm getting, but this player we hope becomes better than Drew Holiday.
I think the problem the Sixers have though is they cannot compete with Miami. And if it were Miami and Philadelphia,
well, that's the geographics of all sports.
But when you know anything about Lillard's a guy that, I think just when you look at Philadelphia, if you're a guard in the NBA, it is a perfect spot for you. You will shine here. You will be the next.
The podcast. I don't know if I played you the audio last time you were on. Izzy Gutierrez basically talking about Ben Simmons and whether or not the Heat would go after Ben Simmons to get him into the Heat culture. And he said, Simmons is an unlikable guy. People don't like him.
This situation for both players, Simmons and Lillard, is perfect. Lillard needs to go up and play at a place where he can win a championship. Ben Simmons will never be what Lillard is and needs to play. He's like Carson Wentz. He's not cut out to play in a city like Philadelphia. He needs to go to Portland or Salt Lake City or somewhere where he can do whatever the hell he wants to do. Listen, I'll say it again. Ben Simmons is the exact guy we saw he was 2 weeks after the season. The most important time in his life. He's paid $40 million to play basketball, which he can't do most of the time.
Yeah.
And where is he? At Wimbledon with a brand new girl to take away all his attention. That's all you need to know about Ben Simmons.
Hey, it's his birthday today. It's his birthday today. He's in the gym.
Is he really?
According to his Instagram.
No shot. That's one of those. I took that photo 2 weeks ago. Yeah, post that to shut those people up.
Happy 25th to Ben Simmons.
Now, I'm not going to say what I want to say to Ben Simmons today. I'm not going to say it because I get you kicked off the radio.
All right. Jeff Nadeau. At Jeff Nadeau. What do you got coming up?
Mike, real quick, and I appreciate you doing that. We've got a huge show tomorrow on my podcast, The Sit Down. We're going to talk about the most successful mobster in the history of this country. Mike, he was the boss in Chicago, one of the most powerful people in America for 40 years. He never spent one day in prison, and he is the great-grandfather of Nick and Joey Bosa. So check that out.
How about that?
The very, very famous great-grandfather that they will not talk about. They've been asked about him. They don't comment on it.
Check that out. The Sit Down with Jeff Nadeau. All right. Take care, man.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. See you. Jeff's back next week. We always have fun, little conversation. He likes the Suns tonight. I like the Bucks, but I would probably take the Suns -5, but I think the Bucks will win the game tonight. All right. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm going to get Michael Cassidy's Below Main's thoughts on that. Who wins tonight and why? He'll give us some insight on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike, Simmons, Maxey, and 3 first-rounders for Lillard. Can it get done? That might get it done. Could. Possibility. Dan from EHG, I would put Dougie P eating ice cream as the banner. It's an interesting choice. Where are you getting the ice cream from? That's the more important question. Where do you get your ice cream from in South Jersey? That's what I want to know. Where is the premier ice cream spot in South Jersey? I was having this discussion with somebody the other night. We were talking about where is the go-to spot to get ice cream in South Jersey. I'm interested in your answer. 609-403-0973. I'm back with more coming up. All right, Michael Kasky-Blomain will join me here to talk a little NBA Finals. The game tonight, you can hear it on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at 8. It's, in my opinion, MKB, will be the final NBA game of the season. I think the Bucks will win the game tonight. What say you?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think that the Bucks have figured out Phoenix, obviously with the 3 straight wins. It just looks like, to me, the Suns don't really have an answer for Giannis. They haven't all series. And then when he's getting help like he has been from, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, when those 3 guys are clicking, the Bucks are really tough to beat. And it seems like they've kind of figured out that formula where all 3 of them can eat and all 3 of them can get their own, over the course of a game. So to me, barring, a great comeback game from Chris Paul, who's definitely not had his best series, I think this one probably wraps tonight also.
Yeah, what would this mean for Paul if he loses? Like, he was such the story. If they end up losing this series, and how many more times is Paul going to be able to get a team back to this level? Does that change? Has he changed anything for himself? I've always been a Chris Paul fan, but there's a lot of people who said he can never win the big one, or, he couldn't even get his team to the conference finals.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens in this finals, I think he definitely bolstered his legacy with this playoff run, taking a young, inexperienced team that had never been to the postseason and, obviously elevating them to the next level and ultimately getting all the way to the finals, I think will help his legacy. But if they do drop, this game tonight or ultimately drop the series, I think it will still be that knock against him in the conversation that, he was never quite able to get a team over the hump, never able to win the big one. And he has a history almost like Doc Rivers. They lost some series when they were with the Clippers together when they had a 2-0 lead. This would be another series for Chris Paul that, if they end up losing, that his team was up 2-0 and ultimately couldn't finish the deal. So I think it could go either way, really depending on what side of the fence on the argument you fall on. If you want to, you could look at this, this run as, bolstering his legacy. But at the same time, if they don't finish it off, I think it could be used as another knock against them to show that, yeah, he's great, but he wasn't that top tier great where he could get a team to the title.
So what is Milwaukee doing to him? That is he not 100%? Are they doing something? What's going on with Paul in this series?
To me, it's all about Drew Holiday, Mike. I think they made a concerted effort after game 2 to, not give up switches so easily so that Paul could go to work on some of the other guys, the bigger guys in Milwaukee, whether that was Brook Lopez or, Bobby Portis. I think they've said, Drew, basically this is your assignment. And I think he's been doing a great job. He's been picking him up almost full court, not letting him, get any fresh looks, any air. And I think he's basically been, nullified a lot of what Chris has been able to do throughout the postseason. I do think he's a little bit banged up. He's had various injuries throughout the playoffs. There's, wrist injury, a hand injury. I'm sure that's playing into it, to a certain extent. But to me, I think you can't overstate how important Drew Holiday's defense on Chris Paul has been for the Bucks in this series.
Michael Kasky-Blomain, CBS Sports, covers the NBA. And, of course, NBA Finals Game 6 tonight here on 97.3 ESPN. There's a lot in this series. Chris Middleton, what does this mean for him? Giannis is going to win the MVP, that we think. But what has this meant for Middleton and kind of the, the next stage of his career?
Yeah, Mike, I think he's leveled up in a big way in this postseason, and he's shown – that not only is he an all-star caliber player, but he's a guy potentially that you can really lean on, throughout an entire playoff run. And when the lights are the brightest and the stage is the biggest, like the finals have been, he hasn't shied away from the moment at all. He's stepped up, especially in the second halves of a lot of these games, and he's shown, his ability on the offensive end. He's such a multifaceted, multi-talented player on that end. He can shoot from 3. He can put the ball on the floor. He has a mid-range game. He can get to the rim. He's a good free throw shooter. So, he's pretty much the complete package on the offensive end. And I think, people already knew that. But obviously, when the finals come around, it's a bigger stage, more fans, more people watching. So I think he's really kind of just, leveled up, elevated his game and elevated his name in the fact of where, I think he kind of flew under the radar. He's made some all-star teams. He's been, widely regarded as a huge part of the Bucks. But I think moving forward, he's a guy that, when you're talking about Chris Middleton, this is a legitimate star.
All right. So this brings up an interesting conversation, I think, MKB, which is how will these finals dictate what teams around the league do? Everybody's always trying to get the 3 stars or multiple stars, and how they get them has varied. Free agency, trades, tanking. Will teams follow the path of either of these 2 teams, or are they viewed as a one-year anomaly?
That's a great question, Mike. To me, I think it's largely a one-year anomaly, especially when you're talking about the Suns. I mean, they're a young team. They didn't, to me, do anything that out of the box or that crazy. They drafted pretty well over the couple years. I mean, they obviously missed some picks like you and I have talked about before. But, they got Booker in there. They got Ayton. They got a couple decent role players. And then they just rolled the dice and brought in Chris Paul, and that combination of, the veteran leadership and his toughness and IQ combined with the skill of those young guys, really catapulted that team to the next level. And that's something that, teams always try to do. The Sixers try to do that in terms of, you get some young guys, you draft them, you bring them along, and then you bring in veterans to complement them. So, they didn't reinvent the wheel to me. They kind of just, caught lightning in a bottle with Chris Paul, and they obviously got lucky with some of the, injury issues to their opponents in this postseason. And the Bucks are, to me, in a similar manner. They had a team for a few years where they drafted guys, they brought them up. Obviously, they drafted Giannis. They picked up Chris Middleton from the Pistons when he was basically, a no-name guy, and developed him into the player that he is. And then they went out and, rolled the dice and brought in Drew Holiday. They paid a pretty hefty price, but they knew, that he would be a dimension that they needed, and they added him to their core. And, here they are. So to me, it wasn't something where either of these teams really did anything that crazy, but they kind of just followed, steps that have been laid out by other teams. So I think, to me, nothing is really going to change in the way teams approach, how they build themselves over the offseason, except for the fact that maybe teams will be a little bit more willing to roll the dice to bring in a guy like a Chris Paul or a Drew Holiday, even if the initial price is a little bit higher than you would, want as a team.
Okay, so Giannis wins a title potentially in Milwaukee. Does that change the view of a guy like Dame Lillard, who's saying, we've hit the ceiling here, we can't get any better? Does he say, you know what? He stayed in Milwaukee, went through a lot of losses, figured it out, and won. I want to follow that.
I think so, Mike. I think that would be, a model that you could fall after. Giannis has been in Milwaukee for 8 years now. Obviously, since that 2013 draft, they were a really bad team his first couple of years, and he stayed there. He re-upped. He allowed the team to build around him, and now they're reaping the benefits. I do think that, could kind of preach patience to other players around the league. Dame is his own case. Maybe he's reached a point where he doesn't think Portland could potentially emulate what Milwaukee has done. But it is refreshing in a league today where you see so many guys jumping ship, so many guys teaming up. Giannis's stance has consistently been that he's not interested in, joining a super team. He's not interested in teaming up with other stars, that he wants to do it his way, and he wants to do it in Milwaukee. So I think if they are able to do that, that there'll definitely be other players that look at that and say, hey, Giannis did it this way. There's no reason that I can't do it also.
Yeah, so obviously that would affect the Sixers potentially. They're one of the teams that keeps getting mentioned. Are you buying that the Sixers and Portland would be a good match if those two teams, in fact, wanted to talk to each other?
Yeah, I really do think that potentially if Dame was made available in trade talks, with the if obviously being the biggest factor there, we don't know what's going to happen with his future in Portland. But if it did get to that point where the Blazers decide that the best move for them is to move on from Dame, I think the Sixers could, come to the table with pretty much an attractive offer as any team, depending on what Portland wants to do. You assume if they trade Dame, it's probably going to trigger a rebuild. And at that point, a guy like Ben, who you could obviously still super young, still a lot of potential and some draft picks, you could do a lot worse than that. Potentially, if they wanted to remain competitive, maybe you give them a guy like Tobias that could plug in there and still keep that team kind of in competition in the West. But, the Sixers that's one thing they do have. They still have draft picks. They have good young players. They have assets. So, if it gets to that, I think the Sixers would be one of the teams that not only Dame would potentially be interested in joining because, of Joel and the fact that they have the chance to win a title, but I think Portland, the front office, would potentially be interested in what Sixers have to offer if it came to that.
Hey, you mentioned draft picks, and we hear a lot. The Sixers don't want draft picks most likely in return. But do you think they are willing? Has Daryl Morey indicated or have any history of saying, I'll give you 2, 3 first-round picks? Like, will he pile on the picks to get a deal done?
Yeah, I think so, Mike. I think that he knows, for the thing with Morey is he's always has his finger on the pulse of the team. Obviously, he did this in Houston where they had an open window with James Harden. And, he tried to bring in Chris Paul. He tried to bring in Russell Westbrook way earlier. He tried to bring in Dwight Howard. He's not going to stop when he sees an open title window with a superstar player in his prime. It's what he did in Houston. Obviously, Joel was the runner-up for the MVP. He's in the midst of his prime right now. He still has, hopefully several great years ahead of him. And at that point, like you said, you don't want draft picks coming back. You don't want unproven players coming back. You want known commodities with very high ceilings that could immediately raise the ceiling of the Sixers. And I think at that point,
is there a draft choice number though? All right, like if I said you're getting the third pick, is there a number that is acceptable
to get back?
Yeah, like if I said you don't want draft picks, but if I said you're getting the third pick, like how is there a guy that maybe at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, if I got the fifth pick, that would really help. Like, and I would accept that. Like, is there a line of demarcation of the draft choice, or a draft choice is just not ready to help right now?
Yeah, from everything that I've been able to gather, Mike, I mean, maybe if they were presented with the top pick and they thought there was a guy that they could plug in immediately, but from everything I've been able to gather, from what I've heard, is that draft picks pretty much just aren't going to move the needle for the Sixers. They need, other reports have been out as they're looking for an all-star caliber player that's already established. And, it makes sense. They're a team that had title expectations last year. They're going to have title expectations next year. And it's not a couple of years ago where they had the time and the patience to, take on draft picks and build them and hope they develop. So I just don't see any deal based around draft picks getting the job done when it comes to, a potential Ben Simmons trade.
Yeah. So if I told you, hey, without having the NBA draft order 2021, let's see, the first pick from what I recall will be Detroit, correct?
Yeah.
So if I'm Cleveland at number 3 and I say I'll give you Colin Sexton and the number 3 overall pick, you don't think that number 3 overall pick is sweet enough to take Sexton number 3 in exchange for Ben Simmons?
I don't think so, Mike, because I think if I'm Daryl Morey, the way I'm looking at it is, you take the team that you just had on paper this past year, you look at what the potential to come back would be, and you look at it and say, is this team going to be that much better with X and Y compared to what we just had? In a deal like that, I don't think, Colin Sexton and a 3 pick in the short term, just helps you out in the way that they're looking to be helped out. So to me, I just don't see a deal being centered on draft picks working out.
MKB, by the way, number 1, Detroit, number 2, Houston, which is interesting because Daryl Morey obviously has some ties to the Rockets. Hey, can you give me the number 2 overall pick? Number 4 is Toronto. Do you think Toronto is a player for Ben Simmons?
They were interested in him, obviously, and he would be an interesting fit there. I just don't necessarily see what they would have coming back unless they, try to execute a sign and trade with Kyle Lowry, maybe some other parts, OG Anunoby coming back to the Sixers. But the Raptors, to me, just don't have a lot of really intriguing pieces to potentially come back for Ben Simmons. Maybe there's always the possibility of a 3-team trade, getting another team involved and having some pieces kick around that way. But in a 1-to-1 situation, I just don't see where they would really have the assets that would, make the Sixers want to jump on a deal with them.
Yeah, I know the Rockets seem like a long shot too at number 2. Orlando's number 5. Oklahoma City's number 6. I guess the Magic are always willing to wheel and deal. They would probably take on some salary, but probably not willing to take on a salary like, say, Tobias Harris.
Yeah, I mean, he still has 3 years left on that deal. It's going to be tough to get a team like the Magic in rebuilding mode to want to take that on. So, that's why, to me, I think it's somewhat unlikely that we do end up seeing a Ben Simmons trade in the short term. Not that he's necessarily going to be with the team by next postseason, but I think it's much more likely that he returns for training camp and starts the season on the Sixers than it is that, they end up settling for a deal like some of the ones that we've been talking about, where to me, the ceiling of the team just really isn't elevated much.
Golden State is number 7. They're interesting. You keep hearing buzz about the Warriors, that the fact that they might be interested in a player like Ben Simmons. I just keep looking up and down that roster and just say, I don't see a fit, man.
Yeah, it's almost the same situation we've been talking about, unless all of a sudden they felt like they wanted to potentially trade Klay Thompson or something like that. But if you're talking to Andrew Wiggins or James Wiseman and they have, 2 picks in the lottery this year, it's the same situation that we were just talking about, where it just doesn't seem like that type of deal is going to elevate the Sixers in the short term. And, it's hard to see Daryl Morey pulling the trigger on a deal like that.
All right, rounding out the top 10, you got Orlando again, Sacramento, and New Orleans. Sacramento, we talked about, actually you weren't on last week. Sacramento has come up a lot. It's kind of fizzled out a little bit. It sounds like the Sixers are interested in Fox. They don't want to give up Fox. Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley and a draft pick, it would be this draft pick right here, I guess, was one of them. Multiple first round. Bagley, Hield, multiple first rounds. That puts your pile.
Nope. It's the same thing. Like, see, that they're interested in De'Aaron Fox, which to me, it would make some sense. Young guard, a lot of potential, high ceiling. Obviously, probably a more complete player on the offensive end at this point than Ben Simmons is. A deal like that would make sense. But as soon as he's off the table and you're talking about pennies on the dollar with a guy like Buddy Hield, Bagley or these draft picks. So, unless De'Aaron Fox is going to be included, or potentially even Tyrese Halliburton, who had a really nice rookie season with Sacramento last year and seems to have a really high upside and could potentially, fill in that void for Philadelphia if Simmons was moved on. Unless those two guys, one of those two, are included in a deal, it's, it falls in that same category to me where it just doesn't push the needle.
Michael Gasky-Blomain, and of course, the NBA Finals continue tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. You can hear them all starting at 8 o'clock, the Ben Simmons stuff. And obviously, there's going to be an interesting offseason here because we got the Olympics, we think anyway. That might happen, it might not happen. But we got Olympic hoops, the draft, summer league, and the league is going to be back before we even know it. So there's going to be a lot happening in a small window of time. So it seems that Daryl Morey's going to be busy here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. This offseason is, like you said, Mike, very condensed. It's almost already creeping into August, and the finals are still going on. And you didn't even mention free agency, fitting in there at the beginning of August in between all those other things. So, for the players, they'll get a brief break. But for us and for the front office, there'll be almost no break. The Sixers obviously will be, scouring the draft and seeing if there's any type of trades or deals to be made up to that. And then immediately afterwards, you go into free agency. And then in September is, training camp is going to start. So it's going to be another really fast-paced, compressed offseason. And the Sixers, again, are going to be right at the top of the list of teams to keep an eye on in terms of, potential for making moves.
All right, MKB, you like the Bucks tonight. I like the Bucks tonight. It'll be the final game of the NBA season. We both think tonight. If not, Thursday night will be Game 7 in Phoenix, and that would be really interesting. I'm kind of rooting for that, even though I'm picking the Bucks to win. I don't care about being wrong in the game. I'd like to see the Game 7. And, of course, we got, as Michael just mentioned, plenty of all-season storylines to keep an eye on, so we'll continue to talk NBA throughout the offseason. MKB, thanks, man.
All right, Mike, thanks for having me on, man.
Good to see you, man. And it's, of course, Michael Gasky-Blomain from CBS Sports here on the Sports Bash. He covers the NBA, and, of course, he covered the the Sixers for us at 97.3 ESPN. He is now covering the league nationally with the Sixers' interest. CBS sends him to a lot of Sixers games. Call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning installation, service and maintenance, plumbing or drain cleaning service, 609-641-6440 or JenkinsPlumbingandHeating.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. What's your favorite place to get ice cream? That was the question. What is your favorite place in South Jersey to get ice cream? Where's your go-to spot to get ice cream? That's what I want to know. We had this discussion on Saturday evening because I'm on the island, right? I was in Margate, and I'm thinking, where do I get ice cream? I'm in Margate. Where do I go? There's about 50 choices in Ventnor, right? And then in Margate, I'm walking down the street, and I see somebody. I said, hey, I'm in Margate. I'm on Essex Avenue right now. Where's the closest place to get ice cream? The person gave me a wrong answer, number one, right? Gave me the wrong answer. What's the closest place? Sent me as far away from where I was standing as I can go. First off, the closest place from Essex Avenue to get ice cream was a block over. Or you could go right to Ventnor and go get ice cream about 8 blocks that way. Instead, he sends me to nearly Longport. But if I'm going to get one place ice cream in South Jersey, where am I going? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What else do I got coming up today? Well, Andrew DeCecco continues the division previews with the NFC North. Some new news on Aaron Rodgers today. If you missed it, I got the details coming up. 3:46 on a Tuesday. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Andrew DeCecco will join me for a little football at 4. Coming up in 14 minutes from now, we will take a look at the NFC North. Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit. Minnesota, sorry. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of Green Bay, the news today around Aaron Rodgers. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported the Packers offered Rodgers a 2-year contract extension earlier this offseason. He turned it down, a deal that would have kept Rodgers in Green Bay for the next 5 years. According to Schefter, the extension would have made him the highest paid player in football. He rejected the offer, indicating, I guess, that the rift between him and the organization really is more about him not wanting to be there than money. Now, the question comes back to, what does it mean? Many have speculated that a new deal would bring Rodgers back. He has turned that down, apparently. So it appears that he essentially does not want to be in Green Bay. Nobody has stepped up to trade for him yet, right? No one has made an offer that we have heard of. So he either plays in Green Bay or he sits out. If Rodgers decides he doesn't want to play there, if I'm Green Bay, I don't trade him. You know, it's like, enough with this Mickey Mouse stuff. You either want to play or you don't. Your feelings are hurt because we drafted a quarterback. Get on the field. 37 years old. I'm not trading him. Let him sit there and waste the season. Literally, let him sit there and waste a year. Now, you might say you're cutting your nose to spite your face. I don't care. I don't care. You might say, well, what if somebody offers you 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers? Why wouldn't you just trade him? You know why? Because at some point, this nonsense has to stop. All of this forcing my way out, you're not happy. Why? A lot of us aren't happy. I don't get to walk down the office and say, hey, trade me. Right? I don't get to say trade me. There's many days I feel like saying, hey, trade me. I've had enough. You know? I don't get to say that. You drafted Jordan Love. Who cares? You're Aaron Rodgers. That's why I don't get it. I just, like, if that's the reason, I just don't get it. Unless they did something so horrible that could be a possibility that we haven't heard. But if it's literally, hey, he's just not happy with the way the team has been built around him, all that stuff, that's out of your control, buddy. You don't own the team. You don't own the team. The owner of the team, and they don't really have an owner of the team. It's one of the problems that they have in situations like this. It just bothers me to no end. Like fans, we complain all the time. They got to do this. No, the guy who owns the team can do whatever he wants. If he wants to have a horrible team, he's allowed to. You know why? He owns it. Like in these situations, to end this type of stuff, right? To end this type of stuff, the teams just have to take it for the team and say, we're not trading you. You're going to sit out. You're 37 years old. You want to sit out a season? That's your choice. How many more seasons do you have left? 3, 4, 5? Great. You want to sit out one of your 5? You have a chance to put up some of the greatest numbers of all time. You just want to sit out because we drafted Jordan Love? Who gives a rat's? You know what's funny? ESPN does their rankings, right, of the best offensive weapons. The number 1 wide receiver, the number 1 ranked wide receiver. We keep complaining, oh, they never drafted him a wide receiver. You know who the number 1 wide receiver on the list was? Devontae Adams. So they didn't have to draft a receiver in the first round, apparently. They got one later on in the draft that's the number 1 ranked receiver entering 2021. ESPN.com just put out its top offensive rankings, ranking all 32 teams. Best arsenals in football. Green Bay Packers, number 11. Could they be higher up the list? Sure, but you know what? You're still number 11 on the list. And you have one of the better defenses in football. This is a team, you have Aaron Rodgers. So I need to get defense for Aaron Rodgers because the last thing I want is Aaron Rodgers to be complaining because he scores 38 and his defense gives up 42. Because if they don't draft on the defensive side of the ball, that's essentially what's going to happen. And you know what? Last year, Green Bay scored 509 points, which was number 1 in football. So this arrogant SOB is complaining that they don't have enough offensive weapons, and yet they scored the most points in the NFL last year. 509. You know how many points they gave up? 369. Best in the division. You went 13-3. Apparently the guy who's running the team isn't doing such a bad job. And I imagine that most Eagles fans would trade whoever your GM is for Howie Roseman, even though Roseman has won a Super Bowl more recently than Brian Gudacrest or whatever the heck his name is out there in Green Bay. What's his name? Guntakis. I was close, and I was just totally making up a name. Very close. So the whole thing to me is Rodgers just being somewhat of a crybaby. Right? Doesn't it sound like it when I put it in that term? People all over screaming talking heads. They haven't drafted him any weapons. ESPN ranked him as the number 1 receiver in football, Devontae Adams. They're not giving him any weapons. Somehow they scored 509 points last year, the most points in all of the NFL. They're not giving him any weapons. ESPN just did a ranking of the top arsenals in football. This is your offensive arsenals, running back, wide receivers, tight ends. Number 11, not so shabby. And your defense gave up the least amount of points in the division. It sounds like the GM's not doing such a bad job. So what is Aaron Rodgers complaining about? If he's that disappointed that the team had, holy mackerel, the foresight to say, our quarterback's 36 years old. We don't want to start this player right away, Jordan Love. But much like we did with Aaron Rodgers, we would like to get him in our system and learn from Aaron Rodgers so that 3 to 5 years down the line, he could possibly be our quarterback. Hey, Rodgers, it worked for you when they drafted you when Brett Favre was there. So if you're still angry at this whole notion, I got news for you. Get over it. And guess what? I don't care if you sit out the year. I don't care at all. 37 years old. You'd be cutting your nose to spite your face. You want to take a season off? Go host Jeopardy? Fine. Become Barry Sanders when we say, what could have been? Man, I would have loved to see you play those last 3 to 5 years of your career. Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, it is football at 4. It is Andrew DeCecco. We're looking inside the NFC North. I'll get his thoughts on Rodgers, obviously. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which drops on Thursday. Monday had a new one. It was a fun one. Check it out over at InsideTheBirds.com, wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple Pods, Google Play. Andrew DeCecco's here, our continuing coverage of the NFL divisions. We've been breaking down these divisions one by one. Today, we're going to take a look at the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings. And Andrew DeCecco is back. We've been doing a lot of this, and today we had some interesting news inside this division, so we'll continue and take a look at that in just a bit. Andrew, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm doing all right, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, man. These have been fun. It's been good to hear your insight, getting a little bit of a deeper look at some of these teams, and I think this division has a lot of interesting teams in it. The NFC North, we'll start off with the Chicago Bears, and maybe one of the more interesting quarterback situations in all of football, where Andy Dalton, Justin Fields, and Nick Foles are all going to be on the field, and you wonder which one of those three. It sounds like Dalton. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I mean, try to figure that one out. Talk about a crowded quarterback room. If I had to guess right now, Mike, I would say that Andy Dalton's probably got the inside track to start. However, it's anyone's guess how that's going to shake out throughout the season. I don't know that Andy Dalton's a quarterback that you can count on for a full slate of games to play at a high level. I think eventually we've seen that him be a streaky quarterback in the past, so I don't know that he's going to be able to maintain that grasp at the top spot. So we know Nick Foles very well, of course. So I think it's a matter of time before Justin Fields gets his number called. And I mentioned this on your show before. I really like his upside and pro prospects, so I think he has a lot to offer.
Yeah, I know they like Dalton there, but you wonder if that's just lip service for as long as they possibly can until Fields actually pushes him off. Your prediction, who will start week one?
Oh, Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's going to start week one, but like I said, he's someone that could sort of navigate them through the first handful of games until you start to see the streakiness, right? You're going to see the good and the bad of Andy Dalton. I think eventually they're just going to be a middling team. So they're going to say, well, you know what, let's put the kid in and see what we got in Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is going to bring so much more of a dynamic presence to the offense, really be able to utilize the Allen Robinsons, the Darnell Mooneys, the Marquise Goodwin, who can be a decent deep threat if he actually does make the team. David Montgomery, just a more well-rounded offensive attack, which under Mitch Trubisky, it really hasn't been much of anything on offense.
Running back David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen's a nice weapon there. Robinson is one of the better receivers in football. This is a team that I guess has a little bit of offensive talent. When you think Bears, a lot of times you don't think of these great offensive weapons, but Robinson certainly would be in that mix. How do you see the weapons here on the Bears?
You know, it's funny. I had this conversation with my friend Ron today just about the Chicago Bears running back situation, David Montgomery, and of course what happened to Cam Akers, which will be Darrell Henderson being the starter there. And the way I sort of had that balanced out for the draft, I actually had Josh Jacobs, then it was David Montgomery, then I had Darrell Henderson, and then I had Miles Sanders. I think David Montgomery is a really well-rounded running back that has been criminally misutilized there in that Chicago offense. I think he can bring so much more to the table than how he's being sort of deployed there. I think he can bring a lot as a pass catcher and as a runner, both inside and outside the tackles. Then, of course, you have Tariq Cohen there, who's a good change-up guy, can catch the football, very slippery and elusive in the open field. Khalil Herbert's a player that they drafted in the 6th round out of Virginia Tech, who I really liked. He was a sort of a day 3 guy that I mentioned for the Eagles. Or should they look at running backs, him or Elijah Mitchell were two the day 3 guys that I like. They also have C.J. Marable, an undrafted free agent from Coastal Carolina, who has a decent shot to make the team. So they have a number of running backs there that they can utilize in different types of roles. So I really like what they've done there. I mentioned Allen Robinson. Darnell Mooney to me is one of the more underrated deep threats. He knows this just is going to be his second season, a 5th-round pick out of Tulane. I think he's going to be a breakout star this year and really emerge as a deep threat. So they have a vertical dimension with him. And then Cole Kmet, the tight end, I think he's another guy that is going to be someone that can sort of stretch the field and provide a security blanket for whatever quarterback's there. Andy Dalton will be there in the early goings, I believe. And Jesper Horsted's a player who's very interesting. He backs him up. He was a wide receiver for Princeton, a prolific wide receiver for Princeton. I saw him at the East-West Shrine Bowl, really good route runner. But I mentioned to someone, I said, you know what? I don't know if he has the speed to be a receiver at the next level, but I could see him becoming a tight end. Sure enough, he sort of found his niche there at the NFL level as a tight end, and he is another good receiver there. And so they have a good dynamic tight end duo there.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham there as well. So a veteran player. So interesting offense there for the Chicago Bears. Andrew DeCecco, their defense, it's the Bears. They're always a defensive-minded team. We always think defense. Hicks, Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Trevathan, is this Eddie Jackson, Desmond Trufant. Is this still a good Bears defense?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned Akeem Hicks. He's a dominating, very stout defensive tackle at that to sort of anchor that line there. Khalil Mack, of course. Roquan Smith, I think, is he was a first-round pick in 2018, but I still think, despite his high pedigree, people don't really mention him as far as the more premier linebackers in football. And I really do think that he should be in that conversation because he's such a multi against both the run and the pass, and it's a tackling machine. Really like what he can do there. Danny Trevathan's a tough, hard-nosed football player. Just a steady guy. I remember him from his days with the Denver Broncos. I really thought that he was going to be one of those emerging type of players, but he's been a steady player throughout his career. Then when you look at, you got Desmond Trufant there. You have Tayshaun Gibson, who was a promising safety at one point for, I believe, the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's bounced around a little bit, but he'll be playing opposite Eddie Jackson, another one of my favorite safeties in the National Football League. And then Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson is a player who he did ITB TV before the last draft, and I thought that there was an outside shot that he ended up in Philadelphia, given his sort of his build, and I thought that he had a lot of upside. He was a player that sort of slipped in the draft due to injury concerns in college, but he's really emerged as one of the better young cornerbacks in football. So I love what they've done there.
We're talking with Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Let's go over to the Detroit Lions. A lot of people think this could be the worst team in football. Jared Goff is the new QB in Detroit, and you look around this roster and you wonder, are they going to put points up with Perryman and Williams and Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift? What kind of offense do we anticipate Jared Goff triggering this year?
Well, it's going to be a very sporadic offense. I don't know that they're going to be able to get much of anything going, even with Jared Goff there. Obviously, I think Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback, but adding Jared Goff, you should be able to still manufacture some offense. However, I don't know if they're going to be able to do so. They're going to have to lean on their running game with DeAndre Swift as a player who's going to take on more carries. Of course, Kerryon Johnson's no longer there. Jamal Williams is a bigger back. We saw what he was able to do in Green Bay when he got some extensive looks. I think that he has more to offer than what he was able to show in Green Bay because, of course, Aaron Jones was there. Then when you look at the tight end situation, I think TJ Hawkinson's really going to have to be a key player here because you want to see him take the next step. This is going to be his third season in the NFL. He's going to have to be someone that Jared Goff leans on. Remember, Jared Goff has not historically leaned on either of his tight ends, or any of his tight ends, I should say. With the Rams, I thought that there's a chance that Tyler Higbee was going to emerge. That never quite happened. He seems to really key in on a lot of his receivers, and that's why I think a player like a Khalif Raymond, who was with the Tennessee Titans, he's a slot receiver. Tyrell Williams has a chance to be a good deep threat for them, and Brashad Perriman's there coming over from the Jets. I think that, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a player who was a fourth-round pick out of USC, sort of in the mold of a Golden Tate, one of those stockier, do-it-all gadget type of players, but is really physical after the catch, can manufacture yards that way. I think he's going to be a player that really becomes a focal point for Jared Goff as someone who can take dump offs and move the chains in that way. So they have some guys. I just don't know if they're going to be consistent enough to generate offense with regularity.
All right, Detroit. We all agree it's one of the teams that is young and struggling, and they're changing things over. Like they're, the new head coach there, Dan Campbell, seems to be getting some good grades. But defense is another interesting situation. Michael Brocker's up front, Jamie Collins at linebacker, Trey Flowers Okuda, who they drafted, a year ago. But overall, it seems like Detroit could struggle defensively as well.
Yeah, they have Aleem McNeil, the defensive tackle they took in the third round. A lot of Eagles fans, he had the higher pedigree, and they ended up going with Milton Williams. I think Milton Williams is a better fit in Philadelphia, by the way, but he's there as a third-round pick. Michael Brockers is there. John Pennicini was a sixth-round pick last year, a fantastic day 3 value pick. He plays with great leverage. He's a strong guy. He played at Utah. I think he offers a little bit of upside in the interior there. They also have, we said Jamie Collins, of course. Alex Anzalone's there, came over from the Saints. And Amani Oruwariye from Penn State, he's there at corner. He is a grabby player who doesn't necessarily rely on technique, and he tends to panic a little bit, and he's not necessarily the most fleet-footed corner. So he's a grabby guy, but he has a lot of raw ability. I just don't think that he's going to be a consistent enough player. I think he's sort of going to be – teams are going to take advantage of his aggressiveness on the outside. And Okuda's there, of course. So, I mean, they have a couple of pieces to work with there, just not enough talent on either side of the ball to really make any headway in that division.
All right, you look at the Detroit Lions, one of the worst teams possibly in football. You go over to Green Bay, which last year was one of the best teams in football, but you got to start at the quarterback position. We don't really have an answer. What's going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be make or break for this entire division, what happens at the quarterback spot in Green Bay. However, I do think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be present and accounted for this season and lead that Green Bay offense. I love what they have. I love the pieces that they have there. You look at the running back situation. We mentioned Aaron Jones, and of course they have A.J. Dillon from Boston College, who really is going to take over that Jamal Williams role between the tackles grinder and then factoring in the goal line situations. Josiah DeGuara was a tight end, an H-back type player out of Cincinnati in the draft last season that I really like for Philadelphia. Philadelphia expressed a little bit of interest in him pre-draft. He's someone that I think is going to be more involved in the offense. Mercedes Lewis is there. Mercedes Lewis feels like he's been around forever, but he's still going to be there. So you have a couple of guys that are going to make some plays over the middle of the field, and DeGuara and Mercedes Lewis. And they drafted Amari Rodgers from Clemson. He's going to be a slot receiver, and he's going to provide an adequate complementary piece to both Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard. Devontae Adams obviously is one of the most gifted receivers in football. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling is more of not a volume receiver, but he's someone that plays well in spurts. And I think that he is going to be best served as a fourth or fifth receiver on that receiving core. And so they do have a lot of depth there that I like.
Yeah, obviously, it's funny. We mentioned the weapons. Devontae Adams was recently ranked as the number one wide receiver in football on that ESPN.com survey of scouts, executive players. So they got a great weapon there. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, nice little 1-2 punch there. Valdez-Scantling has been a nice find for them. Equimonius St. Brown has been a nice find for them. Their offensive line is one of the stronger ones in football.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention David Bakhtiari, the left tackle, and, of course, John Runyon, the left guard. He was a player, another late-round guy who I really liked, saw him at the Shrine Bowl. He's a versatile, tough player, much like his father, and he really sort of settled into a role there in Green Bay. He's a scrappy guy, sort of custom fit for that offensive line and that environment. That tough, cold Green Bay where they want to ground and pound. I like the fit there. And Eldon Jenkins, the center, is another good young player as well. So they're a very well-rounded offense with a lot of firepower.
Andrew, they scored the most points in football last year. And in their division, they gave up the least amount of points in the NFC North. So when you look at this defense, it doesn't have like that jump off the page name at you. There's some good names here. It doesn't have that all pro type of guy, but this is a very steady defense. Yeah,
there's a lot of cohesiveness, just a lot of solid, fundamentally sound football players that play very well collectively as a unit. And that's what great teams have, and a lot of chemistry there. When you look at Kenny Clark is a very underrated nose tackle. He was the first round pick, I believe, in 2016. Rashawn Gary was somebody who they drafted, their outside linebacker. He was a defensive end at Michigan, their first-round pick in 2019. Was not particularly high on him coming out of the draft. I thought he had a a sporadic motor, and I thought that there were certain opportunities of his game that he could have refined. I didn't necessarily see a fit in the first round for him, but he's there. He's starting to turn the corner and become the player that they envisioned him when they came out in the draft. And Darius Smith sort of emerged out of nowhere a couple of years ago. I love what he can bring as a pass rusher. And then when you look at the secondary, Jair Alexander is my favorite cornerback in football, right up there with Tre'Davious White from Buffalo. I like what he can bring he's not necessarily the biggest guy, but he's fearless. He's tough. He'll get in your face. He can cover any type of receiver that you want. Great ball skills, can attack the catch point, or affect the catch point, I should say, and just does not back down from a challenge. Chandon Sullivan is probably one of the best nickel corners in football, former Eagle, by the way. And Darnell Savage is one of the better young safeties in football to pair with Adrian Amos. So I love their secondary.
Good stuff from Andrew here, breaking down Green Bay. Now, the other team in the division is Minnesota. I find this team to be interesting. I thought they were a major disappointment last year. Their defense was a problem. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Right there, you've got a great core of offensive weapons. And then their offensive line has been a big problem over the years. So how is Minnesota looking offensively in 2021?
Well, you're right. Minnesota's offensive line has been up there with the Giants, the Bengals, the Cardinals. They're just teams that perennially have very porous offensive lines historically, and they sort of added some young pieces over the past couple of years. In 2020, they added Ezra Cleveland, the left guard, in the second round from Boise State, and they drafted Christian Darrisaw, the tackle from Virginia Tech, in the first round this year. So that left side solidified. However, it's the right side is going to give them problems this season. They're still a work in progress in that area, but they do have some young players to develop. I love their receiving core with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. They're not necessarily burners, but they're terrific route runners, and they know how to get they know how to get open. They have a great feel for finding the soft spots in zone. They attack the football in the air. And they're just the type of receivers that Kirk Cousins, the player of a Kirk Cousins caliber, is going to have to lean on, because he's not someone that is a consistent enough passer to find guys deep or anything like that. He's going to look to those guys over the middle to make these catches and things like that. That's just sort of his game. He doesn't have the arm strength to get it down the field consistently. They drafted Amir Smith-Marset. He was a raw but talented, speedy receiver out of Iowa. I think he's going to factor in as a kick returner for them. He was a tremendous return man in the Big Ten last year. So, I mean, and then having even gotten to the running backs, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison might be the best 1-2 punch in the NFL.
Yeah, Cook, to me, is getting there to the point where, him and Kamara, two of the most dynamic players at that position in the league. Thielen's so steady. That's a fun offense, but the line has let them down. We'll see if they're better. Defensively, though, is where they were really let down, I thought, last year. And it came up front because they've had some really good players in the back half. Now, we've seen two of those players come to Philadelphia, Eric Wilson being one of them, Anthony Harris. Harris was a guy who was pretty good in 2019, was not as good last year, but did a lot of that have to do with the problems they had up front?
Yeah, and you and I talked about that. I think that's exactly what happened. But Minnesota really addressed the defensive line, added some girth there in the middle with Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson. Right in the middle of that defensive line, they're going to be a force against the run and push the pocket and get the quarterback off his spot. Then Daniil Hunter's there, of course, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks. Then on the back end, you have Patrick Peterson, who is certainly not the Patrick Peterson of old, but he should still lock up some of the top receivers and provide some coverage there. Harrison Smith and Xavier Woods are there. Xavier Woods came over from Dallas. He's been a very inconsistent up and down player, but he's going to provide some, he's an adequate replacement for Anthony Harris. So it's not a tremendous downgrade. Gladney's the right corner there. He's going to have to really take a step in his development. He's a very lean-bodied and finesse type of corner that really is going to struggle with some bigger-bodied receivers if he doesn't develop his play strength. But I do think he has some tools worth developing. Of course, he went to TCU. He was a teammate of Jalen Reagor. And then in nickel, they also have another young corner who they drafted in the third round last season in Cameron Dantzler, who has really surprised me. I think he's developed. He's come along quite a bit in just one season. So,
all right,
I do like what they have there.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting team. Minnesota should be interesting to see how this unfolds for them. I thought they were one of the more disappointing. Them and Philadelphia, I guess, were two of the most disappointing teams in the league last year. Philadelphia had a lot of injury issues. Minnesota just had a lot of disappointing outputs, and they had some injuries as well, but we'll see. I think Minnesota will be interesting. So in the end, this is a tough division to kind of chronicle. I guess you could do your NFC North with Aaron Rodgers and without Aaron Rodgers.
Well, why don't we start with Rodgers? The Green Bay Packers would be the class of that division. Then I think you have to look at the Minnesota Vikings, because I do like what they have from an offensive skill set, and they do have some. We just outlined some of the pieces that they have there on defense. Then I want to go with the Chicago Bears, and solely because, they have a stout defense, but their quarterback situation is in a state of flux right now. You don't necessarily know what way they're going to lean, and even if they do go to Justin Fields, it's far from certainty that he's going to, step right in and be, set the world on fire. So, and then to round things out, you got to go with the Detroit Lions. They're just a mess, and like you said, they could very well be the worst team in football.
All right, there you go, Andrew DeCecco, breaking down the NFC North. Great stuff, football at 4. And our final division preview happens on Friday. And then on Tuesday, Andrew will be here for the kickoff of Eagles training camp. That's when it begins. Tuesday's edition of Football at 4 is the official start of Eagles training camp, and we have it covered here on the Sports Bash Live. Check out InsideTheBirds.com as well, as Andrew and Jeff have been going back and forth on a variety of topics to get you ready for Eagles training camp. And, of course, tomorrow Adam Kaplan is here. Andrew's back Friday, Jeff on Monday, and we've got you covered for Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. All right, Andrew, great stuff, man.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
You do the same. These division previews have been fun. We'll do the NFC East on Friday's edition with Andrew DeCecco. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can check out the show live video. And, of course, coming up at 5 o'clock, Pete Thompson is here for a Tuesday with Thompson. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. All right, do you remember it's things that happened on this day? July the 20th, 2021 is the day. These are things that happened on this day in the past. I'm Mike Gill. My producer is Josh Henning, and take a look at some of the big events that happened on this day. Now, you told me beforehand, before I forget, today is Ben Simmons' birthday.
Yes, that's
so on this day.
That was one of my contributions to the pre-show segment for this.
There you go. So happy birthday, Ben Simmons. Will Ben Simmons be back this year?
I don't think so.
You know, if Sixers fans could have a surprise birthday party for Ben Simmons, how many people would show up?
Not many. Only the freeloaders.
1973, martial arts movie icon Bruce Lee passed away in Hong Kong 6 days before his groundbreaking film Enter the Dragon released. He was 32 years old. Now, you brought that up to me as well.
I did, and it's a huge deal because what happened was, for those who don't know, Bruce Lee took a medication, over-the-counter medication at the time for a migraine, ended up having a negative impact on him, and that led to a brain aneurysm, they believe, and killed him. There's some speculation people believe that he was, poisoned and killed, but most accounts are that it was just a medical anomaly, that he took something he shouldn't have taken.
Now, you said something that your Fitness Friday article has something to do with Bruce Lee?
Yes. Fitness Friday this Friday has to do with Bruce Lee. I don't want to give too much away, but keep tuned for that.
All right. Nice tease.
I have my moments.
1986, Greg Norman wins the British Open.
The Shark.
Yeah, it was his first major championship. Now, would you rock the Greg Norman clothing line?
Probably not.
Not your style.
I don't feel like that is my vibe. I've known people who that is their vibe, but I'm not one of those people.
I think PT would go that route.
PT would definitely consider the hat.
I was going to say, PT, I think, even has the hat.
Does he really?
I think he does. That big, old
straw hat.
Yeah, I think he has something to that effect. We'll have to ask him. You have to remind me to ask him in a half an hour.
The problem for Pete is that I'm not fully sure if he is ready to go with the full, with the neckline coming down on the chest like Greg did at times. Greg didn't have the top button on, let's put it that way.
Solid look.
He was very very secure in himself, let's put it that way.
I've seen PT though sometimes where he has like the wide neck, like button up where he doesn't have the button. The Seinfeld episode, the first one and the last one. The series starts with the same line that the second button is the most important button on the shirt.
I did not know this.
Yes, it's the first line of Seinfeld episode 1, and it's the last line of Seinfeld, the season finale or the show finale. That the second button is the most important button on the shirt.
Now, you're talking about from top to bottom or bottom to top?
From the top to the bottom.
Okay,
the second button
second
placement.
From the top. Okay.
Yes. The placement of the second button makes or breaks the shirt.
Does it also make or break the look?
Well, yeah, because it makes or breaks the shirt is making or breaking the look. Because if the button's too high, like I have certain button-ups where the button's too high, but if it's too low, now you're showing too much chest. Mm-hmm. It's got to be in the perfect spot.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because sometimes some of those shirts, the button alignment is a little out of whack. So if you don't have the right button at one place or another, you look like you may from a different era.
Yeah. 1976, Hank Aaron hits home run 755. It's the last one of his career for the Milwaukee Brewers. The solo shot of Dick Drago. Sounds like a made-up name. Aaron's major league career also began in the city of Milwaukee, playing for the Braves before the team moved to Atlanta. But Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank, number 755 on this day in 1976. It's the last home run he ever hit.
I feel like that guy, Dick Drago, needs some investigating of who the heck that guy was. I need to learn more about Dick Drago.
Find out more about him. Do it.
I'm going to.
I guess he pitched for...
I'm going to lose part of my evening looking into Dick Drago.
Yeah, that'll take you down a YouTube rabbit hole, right? What else we got? Ben Curtis, a PGA Tour rookie. What happened to Ben Curtis?
Right?
A rookie in his first major championship wins the Open Championship, the sport making 4 bogeys on the final 7 holes.
How about all the random dudes with the name Curtis? You mentioned Ben Curtis. How about Kevin Curtis playing in the NFL?
Yep.
He played with the Eagles.
Yes, he did. He actually had a huge game for the Eagles wearing those Frankfurt Yellow Jacket uniforms. He had a monster game that day.
It's one of the best games of his darn career.
I think he had over 200 yards.
He did.
2017, the Nevada Parole Board granted parole to O.J. Simpson, who had been serving a 33-year prison sentence for kidnapping and armed robbery, completely separate from his other mishaps.
Yeah, that whole fiasco.
Somehow O.J. Simpson has lived such a charmed life, even after kidnapping charges, armed robbery, murder.
Yeah, and he's a superstar on social media. People love him.
Right? He's turned into like a whole new world. He's like Mike Tyson became, he was heavyweight champion of the world, and now he's a comedian.
Right.
One-man show. I saw the Mike Tyson one-man show.
Did you really?
Yeah, I met Tyson, too.
I know you told me that you met him. I never knew you actually got to see the show.
Well, I met him after the show. When the show was over, I went,
okay.
hey, I got a chance to go backstage and meet him.
That's cool. How was that?
I was with my father, and my father used to box. So apparently my father sparred a guy that Mike Tyson sparred, and they had that little conversation.
Well, that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, right? And I'm sitting there. Mike Tyson's hands were like the biggest thing. Now you know why he's like the heavyweight champion. The circumference of his hands were like a catcher's mitt.
So what size glove did he wear?
I don't know. I didn't ask him that.
Because the reason I'm asking is
that would be a question you would say, what size glove do you wear?
Well, the reason I'm asking is because remember Shane Carwin?
No.
So he fought Brock Lesnar years ago for the UFC heavyweight championship. And Shane Carwin was the only man with bigger hands than Brock Lesnar in UFC history. Carwin wore a size 5XL glove. Lesnar wore a 4XL glove.
Interesting.
So you had two guys. It was one of the greatest heavyweight fights in UFC history because Carwin almost finished Brock Lesnar, and Lesnar survived and knocked him out in the next round. But you have these two behemoth human beings with these massive hands just bashing each other in the face.
Right. All right. Well, I don't know what size Mike Tyson's gloves were.
I'm just curious how Tyson lines up next to those guys.
2008, Padraig Harrington becomes the first European in more than a century to win golf's oldest championship. 2 years in a row, he wins the Open Championship by 4 shots.
It's so appropriate that today is Tuesday with Thompson that we're having all these British Open things here.
Well, of course, like last week, all the Wimbledon stuff was in there.
Right.
This is the classic time of the year for
the Open.
The Open. But other than that, not a highly populated day of things happening. July 20th, kind of meh.
Yeah, this is the time of year where you're almost waiting for training camp and the MLB trade deadline to get here faster. Please.
Yeah, because 1997, Larry Walker hit 2 home runs in a 9-5 win over the Cubs at Wrigley Field, snapping an 8-game losing streak for the Cubbies.
That's on this moment.
That makes the list of things that happened on today.
If that was any other day, they wouldn't even make the list.
That's true. Well, you have other random stuff like 1932, Babe Ruth entertains the touring Australian cricketers in his private box at Yankee Stadium as the Yankees beat the White Sox 7-2.
That is very random.
That happened on today.
That's a random thing right there.
Yep.
This random moment brought to you by
all these things. Detroit Tigers pitcher Jim Bunting, a former Philly, no-hits the Red Sox in 1958.
Yep. Jim Bunting, famous for the no-hitter on Father's Day.
As a Phil.
As a Philly.
Yeah.
This was not as a Philly.
No, this was as a Tiger. So you got a no-hitter today, which I guess is good.
That's cool. I can rock with that.
1987, Don Mattingly made it yesterday, but today he makes it for the fielding record with 22 putouts at first base.
That must have been a weird game. 22 putouts at first?
There you go.
I would love to. I want to go back and watch that game to figure out how exactly that went down.
A lot of ground balls.
Yeah, they have a lot of ground balls in certain situations too, because not every ground ball is a fieldable ball. You know that.
Well, obviously they were hitting them either right to him or right at others. I mean, all these ground balls: 4-3, 5-3, 6-3, 3-U.
I want to know how many of these were left-handed hitters, how many of them were right-handed hitters. Who was the pitcher? That matters.
What else we got today? I think we're pretty good today. Tomorrow, by the way, there's a great one in here that I'm not even going to tease, but make sure you check out tomorrow's Do You Remember?
Do You Remember?
Yeah. All right. Sports Best Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. That's today's Do You Remember? Things that happened on this day, July the 20th, brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We got plenty more coming up. Pete Thompson at 5 o'clock tonight for a Tuesday with Thompson and Phillies in action and some Phillies news. I have that coming up next. All right, so some Phillies news just came down about the last half hour or so. It looks like the team is going to be without Zach Eflin for at least the next 2 starts. He's going on the injured list with right patellar tendonitis. He had this injury a couple of years ago. If you remember, in 2016, Eflin missed some time because of surgery, and they activated Aaron Nola, who was going to pitch tonight. So Eflin is the news, though. He will miss the next 2 starts, which means the team is going to go tomorrow with a bullpen game. And who knows, they might have to do the same for his next start, whenever that was scheduled to be in the next week or so. Let me see when he was next scheduled to start. He was scheduled to start tomorrow against the Yankees. So now it's going to be a bullpen game tomorrow instead of Zach Eflin. And then, actually, no, they're going to go with Matt Moore. He was scheduled to throw on Thursday. So it's going to be a bullpen game now on Thursday against Atlanta. And then when they play Washington, they will most likely need to go with a bullpen game again. Now, the next time Eflin would be scheduled to pitch is after the trade deadline. So the 2 starts that he has leading up to the trade deadline are Thursday. So Matt Moore will pitch tomorrow against the Yankees, and Eflin's next start against the Atlanta Braves, they are going to need, the Washington. No, excuse me. Eflin's supposed to start Thursday. It's only a 2-game set against the Yankees. That's where it's getting me here. Moore tomorrow, Eflin Thursday against the Yankees. He is now scratched. Tuesday, he is also scratched against Washington. He is on the 10-day IL, retroactive to July the 17th. So if he misses just the 2 starts, then the Phillies, I guess, would be okay. But if he misses multiple starts, let's say he can't come back and he's not ready to go, now you've got to throw another possible trade into the mix here. Right? You've got to think about adding a starting pitcher. If he can't come back, let's say he isn't ready to come back from that injury and he has to miss more time. Now, he's been solid but unspectacular. He's 4-7 with a 4.17 ERA, a 125 whip in 105 innings this year. It's not great, but as a number 3 guy, he's been kind of steady, I guess you could say. Nola, who has been average, is pitching tonight. He has been activated from the injured list, with Eflin going on the injured list. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Dave Dombrowski cuts. With Nola pitching tonight, here's what Dave Dombrowski had to say about his opening day starter.
The September issues, which have been here beforehand, my guess from just talking to people is that he gets tired. That he's in a position, pitches a lot of innings. He works really hard during the year, and he's been in a position where that September catches up to him. We've been very careful, and I tip my cap to Joe Girardi and Caleb, our pitching coach, because one thing, even though our guys have some innings, they've never pushed guys back on short rest. We give them extra rest all the time this year with the idea of, okay, a healthy pitching staff in September can be just as important as just who's available.
Right. So he mentioned the fact that they don't push these guys. They don't ask them to pitch. With Wheeler, he threw in the All-Star game 3 pitches the other night. They didn't bring him back until Sunday. That they have been very cautious with a lot of their guys. Dave Dombrowski talked about that with Aaron Nola there. But one of the things about Aaron Nola that he brings up as well, when it was asked, hey, what is going on with Aaron Nola?
The other thing with him this year, his stuff's been good. We've seen some outstanding outings for him. I think what ends up happening is mechanically he gets a little bit out with his delivery, and they work on it, and he gets it back in the gear, and he's fine. He'll go out there, throw a great game, and then all of a sudden he'll have a mechanical adjustment. And there's a lot of moving parts in his delivery, and I think he's fallen into that a couple times this year. But again, he's aware of it.
So mechanically, that's interesting for a guy who, he doesn't have a lot of craziness in his delivery when you watch him throw, to check that out. This is a guy who was number 3 in the Cy Young Award just a couple of years ago. It's pretty crazy to see that he's having, or hear that he might be having some mechanical issues. But that was from Phillies president Dave Dombrowski. Now, he was asked, is this team buying or selling? He answered quite clearly.
We're not selling. I mean, we're not in a position where we're looking to move players off our team. Now, if you're in a position and anything can happen in 10 days or 2 weeks, I mean, if all of a sudden, and I don't like to take this scenario and don't think in the next, if you lose 10 games in a row, well, that might be one thing that's a little bit different. Or if you win 10 games in a row, it's a little bit different. But we're in a position where we're in this, and we're going to try to make our club better here over the next time period.
Yeah, I think obviously he was pretty clear there. We're not selling. We are not sellers, and that's good to hear. A lot of people think they should sell. The only thing I would say is, if you don't think you're a playoff team, they don't have a lot to sell. We've gone over this a lot. They don't have a lot of sellable pieces. But if they got into the playoffs, it sounds like Dombrowski realizes, hey, with Wheeler, Eflin, and Nola, we've got a shot.
I've been in the postseason many times with clubs. Once you make it, anything can happen. And if you're in a position, for example, with our club, in any short series, if you go in there with Wheeler, Nola, Eflin all throwing well, and they all have the capabilities to do that, you can beat anybody. It doesn't matter how good or bad a team you are. You can beat anybody. So if you make the postseason, it's extremely important.
I think he's right about that, actually. I don't think the Phillies are a World Series team, but I do think he's right that if you just get to the postseason, if you have great pitching, pitching wins. That's how you can upset somebody. We saw it happen with the Phillies. We saw it happen with the Phillies against them. We saw it happen with the Phillies in 2008 when they didn't have great pitching, but their pitchers just pitched great. Cole Hamels was the MVP of the National League Championship Series and the World Series. And then when they had great pitchers like Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, they didn't win. They got outdueled by a team with Chris Carpenter. They got outdueled by a team with Tim Lincecum and Madison Bumgarner. I mean, so it just takes pitching. 609-403-0973. Dombrowski, what are the biggest issues on this team?
Our weaknesses. Our defense is not our strength. We hope that we outscore that part, our defense, with the lineup that we put out there. Actually, the back end of the bullpen, of course, has struggled at times. It's been a little bit better recently, but it's a situation where I think we have the ability to get it together. Some of the guys have started to throw better. So, for example, a premium piece for us out there, a guy like Ranger Suarez, who wasn't with us earlier in the year, he's an important part. Archie Bradley's all of a sudden starting to throw the ball much better. So I think that's an area that for us has struggled at times, but it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, these are Dave Dombrowski cuts from the Takeoff podcast with John Clark, as we referenced earlier in the show. He mentioned Ranger Suarez and how good he has been, and Archie Bradley. You know, Bradley was a guy early in the year that I kind of liked what he was bringing to the clubhouse. He seems like a likable guy, brings some energy. I think you're starting to see that back as the team is playing well. Remember, he got hurt, he left, and the team kind of teeter a little bit. And then when he came back, he wasn't pitching all that well. Maybe he wasn't 100% healthy when he came back. He's starting to throw better, as Dave Dombrowski kind of chronicled right there. But more from Dombrowski on this Phillies bullpen when you take a look at it.
Ranger Suarez has been outstanding for us. I mean, if you acquired somebody and you said they were putting up the numbers that Ranger Suarez have put up so far this year, you'd be ecstatic. So I think that we can close internally, and there are very few closers that would be out there that would be available. That would be a tremendous upgrade over what we had. I think our bullpen is starting again to settle in a little bit more with Suarez out there, Bradley stepping up, Neris in a different position, Alvarado hopefully throwing more strikes, but some of those other guys have helped us a great deal.
That's the interesting quote there, was that they don't think, or he said, there isn't many upgrades from another organization is better than what they have right now, which is Ranger Suarez, Archie Bradley, Alvarado, if he throws more strikes, putting Neris in a different position. That's one that I think is lip service. He's got a lot of things here that he says that I think is kind of interesting. That one there has to be somewhat lip service. So what type of players is he willing to trade?
So what I've tried to do is when you make trades, you're trying to not trade the upper echelon type guys. You're trying to trade guys that, well, maybe they'll play in the big leagues. You realize that that's the price of acquisition of a good player, but you try to make sure that first and foremost, your own evaluation process of your organization is accurate. And sometimes you're wrong because I mean, players are not just machines. Sometimes they get better, sometimes they get worse. But you hope that that's something that you do very well. So we combine trying to get better in the farm system with trying to win, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Yeah, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too with that one there. Hey, we don't want to give up anything, but we want to get better. That's your classic. Hey, if you want to take some of our, mid-level guys and give us a high-price guy, we're willing to take on money. It's something that we talked about with Frank the last couple times. Bob talked about it too. They can take on some money. That's one of the biggest assets. Mike McGarry brought it up on Monday. They can take back salary, right? They could bring on, hey, you want to give us a player that's making too much money? We don't want to give you much for that player. It's like what we talk about. Nobody wants Gene Segura because they don't want to pay him. They'll take him if you pay off his salary or give us nothing for him. That's what the Phillies are going to have to do if they want to try to upgrade their team. So, Dave Dombrowski, what do you see as the Phillies' strengths?
I think the strength of our club probably falls in a couple places. One is our three top starting pitchers are really good. Now, Wheeler's been outstanding this year. He's been another level. And I think Nolan and Eflin have been good. Maybe not as good as they've been in the past sometimes, but really that's a strength of the team. When you start with those three guys at the top of your rotation, that's a pretty good place to start. I think our everyday lineup, when it's together, has the ability to score runs. We haven't been together very much at all, though, this year. But when we have, it was just over a short time period, we score runs.
So the lineup portion of it is what he's talking about there. The question is that a big enough strength that he doesn't have to upgrade the lineup? We'll play more of these cuts coming up in about a half an hour. When we come back, Pete Thompson's here for a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here. And don't forget tonight, game night, Brian Toporek. We'll talk a little NBA Finals at 6:20 tonight with Josh on game night. Sports Bash 4 o'clock hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Don't forget you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter through 97.3 ESPN. Just search 973 ESPN on those platforms. I'll be back with the PT on a Tuesday with Thompson coming up next. 5 o'clock here on the Sports Bash Live. Pete Thompson still hasn't figured out that when the pot's up, he shouldn't be making any noise.
Sorry.
But that is par for the course.
Hurry
with the PT.
Hey, I didn't get a hurl out of that guy. Look.
Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. It's a Tuesday with Thompson. He also hasn't figured out that he probably shouldn't talk until after the music is off. But what do you got, PT?
I mean, I got headphones on, but I put this hat on top of him. I heard you and Josh talking about my man, the Shark.
Yeah, there's the Greg Norman Shark hat. I thought you had that hat.
Now, this is new. This is not vintage. This is one of those things that came up on my phone, and I was like, oh, I need that. Oh, I have to buy that.
I feel like you had another version of one, like maybe not Shark.
Well, like way back in the day, I had a tan one that, said Green Valley Country Club on it. That was a long time ago, though. I mean, PT's got a giant head, and I actually put product in my hair today, and I'm coiffed, so I wasn't really prepared to wear a hat. But since you brought it up and you were talking about the Shark, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I said today Greg Norman won the British Open. And it was his first major championship. And I said to Josh, would he wear a Shark branded shirt? He said, not his style. I said, more the PT.
Absolutely. 100%. And I got the hat and I got a couple of the shirts. I got to tell you this, even though the PT's got less weight, the Greg Norman shirts are a little tight. So I heard Josh talking about showing off the pec muscles there, and it's not necessarily the pec, but even a less PT belly is still a belly. I mean, they're just a little snug. So certain shirts and certain makers run a little more snug than others. You're wearing an excellent Nike shirt, for example, if you're watching on the stream, and Nike tends to run a little smaller, in my humble opinion. I've got my Husker Adidas on, and I got plenty of room in this thing. A family of 4 could camp in it. maybe not.
Yes, there are certain brands that you get when you're a bigger guy. There's certain brands that you feel more comfortable with, so you tend to stick with them.
Sure, gravitate toward them. So I got the Greg Norman hat. I have a couple of Greg Norman shirts. One of them, I think one of them is 3 and one of them is 4, and the one that's 3, I don't anticipate you're going to see me wearing that anytime soon. But I got that one in hot pink. Now you might say, like, PT pink, like, what are you doing? But there's often times where it's like the theme day, fight breast cancer awareness or whatever, like wear pink to show your support for XYZ. So I was like, all right, I'll get a nice pink Greg Norman polo.
Yeah, well, you've never been afraid, even as a bigger gentleman, to wear the flashier colors. You'll go with the bright orange. You'll go with the
100%.
You'll go with a pink. That's not really my style.
Now, do you want a little lesson, though, so you don't make the mistake that I do? If you ever see on your phone, like, get this Hawaiian shirt, whatever it may be. Maybe it's got the Foo Fighters on it. Maybe it's got
I am out on the Hawaiian shirt.
Don't ever buy one. I bought one. I bought a Beatles Hawaiian shirt. Okay, I don't even think my girlfriend knows this because I stuffed it in the back of the closet so she'd never see it. Yeah, I bought this Beatles Hawaiian shirt. And the thing that came from, Wuhan or whatever is so bad and such a cheap piece of crap.
It came from Wuhan?
Well, yeah, it had like characters on it. I don't know where it came from.
I'm not getting the Hawaiian shirt. You don't have to lecture me on this. Thank you.
Yeah, don't ever do it. Like, right. if it that's two things. When am I going to stop buying things off my phone? At least the Greg Norman stuff.
Oh, I will say this. I once bought something. Now, okay, I got a couple buys, all right? I once bought something off of Instagram. It was a terrible product.
Yes. I bought the MP. You see the thing that looks like a cassette player? I bought something that's supposed to convert cassettes to MP3. And I was like, you know what? I really need that because even though I work occasionally in that building you're in a radio station, and you'd think there'd be a cassette player around, they're harder and harder to come by. Plus, trying to transfer something from an old cassette to a current MP3 format is difficult. So I thought, hey, this is totally worth it. In fact, I was such a moron. I bought one for my father thinking my dad's going to have a bunch of old cassettes. Well, I got mine first and I used it and it was a piece of crap and I've never used it since and I've never successfully converted one thing over. Yeah. And I gave him one and he kind of looked at me like, gee, thanks. Yeah,
thanks a lot. Thanks for so I bought. It was a phone charger that it holds your phone, and while it's holding your phone, it charges the phone at the same time.
And did it work?
It actually does work, but it's not what I had thought.
Right. I mean, look, at the end of the day,
I got that like an Instagram ad, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I need. But you know what the problem is?
Now you're still seeing those ads?
No, I have to put it up, and it blocks the air conditioning from coming out at me.
Oh, yeah. Well, then that's sort of a, thing that you don't think about. They don't show you that in the picture.
But when you drop the phone, okay, you put the phone on the thing, and the little slot, like it's like a little thing like this, it drops down and then it holds on the side. You can't turn the phone this way to watch like television, which, okay.
Also is a problem. I know you're not supposed to be watching TV while you drive, but you know who would love that story is Gary Papa. Gary Papa was the first guy I knew that had TV in his car. And we're not talking like just turn your phone and look at your phone or like you have kids and you're putting the tablet over the seat so they can watch the cartoons in the back seat. He had a goddamn TV in the car. It was like Knight Rider. He had like a whole little monitor in the dash.
Yeah, well, I don't have that. But yeah, I mean, you can't turn it like horizontal. So that's another problem. Now, from what I understand, because I got one and then a mutual friend of ours got one.
Okay.
And it didn't work for them because they had an iPhone.
Oh, very interesting. You have an Android like me, right?
I got a kick out because
Julius, we are brothers. Yeah.
Because the iPhone people act like the world revolves around them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I get this thing and it didn't work for them. I was like, haha, see, it's for Android only.
Right. I love that. I mean, I'll tell you what, I was down with a group of high school people last week down in Sea Isle, and they come every year, and we all got together. So it's like 40 people, right? So we get on the steps of the townhome that they're on, and everybody bunches up, and I'm thinking, like, how are we going to take this picture? And somebody was like taking it from their Apple Watch to then they had their phone mounted, and you know what? I thought that was very clever. I'm like, okay, Steve Jobs or Tim Cook or whoever the heck runs that place now, good job, right? You came up with some technology. The only problem is, then I said, oh, can you text me the picture? They text me the picture. It looks like crap. It was blurry. It was out of focus.
The iPhone cameras are not nearly as good as the Androids.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
that
I
would
100%
even
agree.
The iPhone snobs will acknowledge that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're all in there, but we're all fuzzy. So say lovey.
All right, there's a lot to get to, Pete Thompson, here on a Tuesday with Thompson. Saturday, the Flyers made a big trade.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to get your take on this because they're getting high marks from all over the place.
I mean, I'm giving him higher marks than Billy is. Billy seems to have a problem with the fact that the guy's 30 years old. I have no problem with Ryan Ellis at all, with the slight condition that I hope he stays healthy. Last year he wasn't able to stay healthy. He had some shoulder issues, but I mean, he instantly solves what their problem was. They did not have a second established defenseman. And that's no disrespect to Justin Braun, who's played in the league for a while, but a defensive all-star kind of caliber defenseman. Plus, he's a right-handed shot, Gil. They don't have that many right-handed. In fact, I think he's the only one now, that can come in and be that right-handed shot and sort of pair right easily with Provy. Ivan Provorov is your stay-at-home defenseman. Ellis is now going to be your offensive, if you will, defenseman, but both of them come from a mindset of protect first and shoot second. Ellis is, I saw one Negadelphian or one negative person on social media put out like, oh, he's a passer. One? Yeah, well, no, I mean, but the one that I remember is, oh, he's a passer. That's what we need, another passer. Look, this guy is a bona fide A-lister star, and you're getting him at what I think is a cap-friendly price, like $6.25 million or something like that. And he's under contract for a while, so it's all good to me.
That's interesting because I mean the age I definitely think is worth bringing up, but at the same breath, he'll be the same person to tell you. I can only imagine Nolan Patrick isn't aggressive. He doesn't tough. I don't like his face.
Yeah, that was his whole argument. He wanted to know
Nolan Patrick,
what Nolan Patrick's body language spoke about his, look, the bottom line is, and Nolan Patrick used the word concussion. Other times they had said migraines, who in the bleepity bleep knows what Nolan Patrick's issues are. But I think it speaks volumes about Nolan Patrick that he was dealt to Nashville and they immediately turned around and dealt him off to Vegas. That speaks volumes to me.
Now, what about the Phil Myers part of the trade? Because he's 24 years old. So you can make the argument in that vein that, hey, is he going to be someone you regret trading?
I mean, it's a possibility, but I think that the big thing is that Phil Myers, it wasn't like he was even drafted. That was sort of one of those, he was an undrafted diamond in the rough that came in and got a chance on a team that didn't have a lot of established defensemen and played well his first year. So last year you were looking for another step forward, and Phil Myers was bad. I mean, Phil Myers was flat out bad. I think he was a -10. You know, he had one goal the entire season. Not that defensemen have a lot of goals to begin with, but Phil Myers was flat out. He regressed. There's no other way to put that. So you get rid of Nolan Patrick, who was an enigma wrapped up in a riddle, wrapped up in frustration. You get rid of him, and you have some caution about Phil Myers. But to get what they got back, that to me is why I'm giving the trade an A. You know, I don't even give it maybe an A-, but I'm still giving it. It's in the A category because I think that they instantly improved themselves.
Yep. All right, Pete Thompson. Ryan Ellis is the new Flyer. They trade him for Phil Myers and Nolan Patrick. By the way, the Flyers announced their preseason schedule today, so you could check that out. They will open on September the 28th. So Flyers hockey is almost right around the corner, the preseason schedule. Ryan Ellis. So I guess the next question for you is Ellis and Provorov has got to be the pairing, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody's saying that unless AV has some sort of wrinkle up his sleeve where he wants to put Provorov to start one line and Ellis on the second line. Like, in other words, you're splitting up your two guys. But I think the nature of the fact that Provy's a lefty, Ellis is a righty. I think Provorov is more the defensive defenseman. Ellis is more of the offensive defenseman. I just think all that to me says that that's a good pairing. And of course, you know,
who plays with Sanheim?
Well, first we have to figure out who's left. Does Ghost move? Is Justin Braun somebody around? Robert Haig, like
tomorrow.
Right. I mean, that there's no secret that the fact that some of the names.
What's the case scenario tomorrow in this expansion draft? Who do you want to see taken?
Well, you know, late today, it's funny you bring that up. Late today, there's word coming out that the Blues want to get rid of Tarasenko, and they'd be happy to get rid of him, and maybe that Seattle would take him.
That wasn't late today. We talked about that yesterday with Durso.
All right. Well, late for me. I just saw it today while I was waiting for my doctor's appointment. But, you know, I would love to.
You should have listened to Durso and I yesterday, Peter.
Sorry about that. I was otherwise involved. No, I look at it like this. Like, I really, the only one that would disappoint me, really, to be honest with you, would be Justin Braun and Haig. Those two. Of those 5 games, those two
they don't make any money. You want the guys out with the contracts.
I'd love the guy. Look, and you know, there's been times where I would have traded Ghost for a bag of pucks. I would have driven him to the airport. There's certainly been times where, like, Voracek is an established NHL guy.
Rank JVR, Ghost, and Voracek in the order that you would like to see drafted by Seattle.
Okay, I'm going to go then Voracek 1, Ghost 2, JVR 3 in the order that I'd like them to leave. I really don't want JVR to leave. Look, I think he's of all the names that were left exposed, and I think they left him unprotected with the idea that and it's not that his money is unwieldy, but I think that they left him unprotected thinking we could sneak one through here that they're not going to take JVR. We'll find out.
I agree. No, I think for me, it's Voracek, and Voracek. You've got to get him off these books.
I would agree, but I just don't know if Seattle, you know, if it's just Voracek straight up, I don't think they're going to do that. You'd have to throw a pick in, and that's what I'm sure Durso was saying yesterday, that the proposal is that, you know, Seattle would take Tarasenko, and then they'd send Tarasenko to Philly for Voracek and the pick. And I don't even know if Voracek they have the 13th pick in this year's draft. I don't even know if that's enough. They might have to send Voracek the 13th pick and like Nick Aube-Kubel or something like that to sweeten the deal.
Fletcher had indicated that they would be willing to move their first pick.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, look, they have to get better. And this Ellis move is the first move of other moves. I mean, they still need a backup goalie. They still need some depth. You know, I mean, the funny thing is what the beat writers do. And of course, I don't blame them is, you know, all right, so Nolan Patrick gets moved. So they go get Morgan Frost on the phone and say, hey, so how do you feel about being the third line center? And he's like, whoa, pump the brakes there. He's not an idiot. He's not going to proclaim himself being the third line center when they haven't even had training camp yet. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah. All right, Pete Thompson. Phillies tonight, they'll take on the Yankees, a 2-game set. and then a very important 8-game stretch with Atlanta and Washington. So that they'll play New York for 2, 4 with Atlanta, and 4 with Washington, and that will be the trade deadline. Where will they be on that Friday the 30th?
Well, let's see. They're 1 game above 500 right now. I'd put them. They're 2 games above 500 right now. I'd put them 4, maybe. I think.
Wow.
I think that they can make a push right now. Although I just saw the news before I came on with you about Zach Eflin having to go back on the injured list, so that gives me pause. It sounds like if the tea leaves are right and what that conversation Dombrowski had with my boy John Clark, right? It sounds like they are not selling. They're absolutely in a. Here's the problem.
That's a definitive answer from him.
I love the fact that Dave Dombrowski says we are not selling. We're in a position to buy. What I don't love is, well, what do you have to offer? What do they really have? Because they're not going to give up Mick, the first-round pick last year, right? They're not going to give up Andrew Painter, the first-round pick this year,
Can't
right?
do that.
You can't. But I'm saying,
you're not allowed to do Painter. Mick,
right.
They will not give up.
That's my point. So who are you going to give up? What even Bryce Harper himself has said they don't have a lot of tradable assets, right?
They don't. That's one of their issues. One of the problems that they do have to do is one of the problems they do have right now is they don't have a lot of farm talent, and their
close on the
talent isn't going to get you a lot back in return. The one thing McGarry brought up on Monday is they are able, I guess, to take on salary. In other words, we'll give you a lower prospect for you to give us your guy that you don't want to pay.
Right. And you know what? I saw somewhere today, I think in my various Phillies articles I was looking at, that somebody saying that, look, if they have a chance to get Craig Kimbrell, go out and get him, because all the things that could happen with him, you get an instant closer, an actual closer who's having a hell of a season. And then that allows you to put Ranger Suarez in a 4th role or 5th role as a starter, which is really what he should be. Ranger Suarez was a starter
right now.
Who cares? I understand he's close right now. I'm not saying he's not doing it good.
It's blown 22 saves. It's the only.
Did you miss the Craig Kimbrell part? If you had Craig at Kimbrell, are you leaving Ranger Suarez as the closer?
Not necessarily, no. But I'd still probably have to have him in a setup role, right? I can't. What am I going to do? Put Neris in the setup role?
What if you whiff on every 4th and 5th starter out there? Who you going to have
problems with? If Eflin, keep in mind, he had surgery on this problem a couple of years ago.
It's the right knee, I think, right? It's the same one that he's had the tendonitis and all the other issues with.
Yes. And
you pitch. You should know better than I do. How much do you use your legs in effective pitching? A lot.
Well, if you're pitching correctly, your legs should hurt way more than your arm should after you're done pitching. But most people don't pitch correctly.
There you go. How come your arm
got arm problem?
Is that why you stopped pitching?
That's a good question. I don't know what happened.
Use enough legs.
Overuse would be the answer to the question.
Copy that.
Yeah, copy that, PT. All right. What else did I have on my list of things today for the?
You don't want to find out who I want on the sign for the Eagles?
Oh yes. Yeah. Who do you want? Well, they already changed it. You know that, right?
I know. And after I listened to the open of your show on my phone, and then when I got somewhere where I wasn't,
nice of you.
Well, when I got somewhere where I could actually look at it, I called up the picture so I could look at that, and that was kind of clever what they did. I mean, I know you think they're morons, but look, they basically put the Nick Foles picture in there without it really being Nick Foles. It's just the trophy in hands.
It feels like it's 4 years later. Like you missed the boat on that image.
Well, Jim Thompson, that would be my father. He has a saying, be proactive, not reactive.
Fine.
Would you not agree that the Eagles were reactive in this situation and continue to be reactive, not proactive?
This is another example of them saying, we didn't anticipate having to take Wentz down anytime in the next 5 years or 10 years. And now that we did take him down, we don't have any clue what to put up in that spot. So let's just do something we think everyone will say, yeah, the Super Bowl trophy. Well, you did it 4 years too late, and you did it after a 4-11-1 season.
Yeah, I heard a rumor that the same person that makes those decisions is the same person that thought that Nike would have good All-Star Game uniforms. I think they work in the same department.
My vote was that it should have been the Brandon Graham strip sack. It's the only answer to me.
I saw your article. I retweeted it, I think, when I saw it. I saw it before I heard you talk about it, and I couldn't agree more. It's the most pivotal play, Plus, selfishly, I want my Derek Barnett autograph to go up in value.
which didn't you offer to me to give away at a banquet?
That is correct. That is correct. I mean,
guy.
You want to talk about a guy that gets 2 autographs that he didn't really want: a Roman Quinn baseball and a Derek Barnett autograph picture.
This reeks to me, PT, of you. Okay, let me explain how I feel this happened. Okay, you went to a fundraiser. There were items that were up for bid that no one was bidding on. So you tried to get the bidding started, figuring no one is going to allow me to win this. And you got stuck with both of them.
That's very close. I didn't go to the fundraiser. I was the MC for the fundraiser, the virtual fundraiser. So I was the MC for it. So of course I used part of my MC fee to think yeah. But you're right. I basically these were leftover items, and I thought, enough people always say hey, you're in sports. Do you think the Phillies will send us, or do you think the Eagles will send us, or And in this case, I think most of the teams did send things. It's just it's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get. In fact, who the first Eagle? That was 2 Eagles autographs. The first Eagles autograph that they sent was?
Is he still on the team?
I don't believe so. Is Nate Geary still on the team?
No, he got signed by the Niners and already cut.
That's the guy. Yeah, that's the first thing that they sent. Nate Geary, a Nate Geary autographed photo. And then I think at least somebody from the Eagles had a conscience. It was sent the girl an email and said, we sent you Nate Geary, but he's no longer with us. So we're going to send you another item. So, you think Derek Barnett's a bad thing to have. Imagine if you had a Nate Geary.
If you're Derek Barnett, that the original thing was Nate Geary and you
were the replacement. It's tough to get a good break these days.
You were a first-round pick, and the replacement for Geary is, we sent you Geary. Let me get something else crappy in our bin of free things to give away.
That's right.
Are you around?
Hey, man. I don't get autographs. I thought it would be, for the low, and it didn't cost me a lot of money to get them.
You would be the guy that would ask for an autograph on the field while working.
Oh, never. No, come on now. That's Billy. That's the infamous Billy story. Come on. Pictures, autographs, selfies,
Oh, man. I know. I was throwing it out to see if you picked up what I was putting down there.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Hey, PT, on Tuesday with Thompson next week, Eagles will have started training camp.
Yeah, I think that's exciting. Now, I will be out in the great state of Nebraska, so I'll be looking on from afar. But it's about time, and here's the biggest thing for me is I want to see some of the position battles. I want to see how these things come down. I want to see how, quite frankly, I mean, there's only, what are they doing? 2 open practices again. And you have to get and the tickets go to the autism and all that stuff. There's 2 Lincoln Financial Field practices again, less preseason games, but based on what they had heading into last year, which was Zoom meetings and not much, right? I mean, I'd like to see something that resembles a real training camp.
Oh, I think you're going to get it for the most part. I mean, I think everything's going to be as normalized as possible. I think all 32 teams have announced they're going to have full stadiums and everything. Now, they're talking about the Olympics possibly at the last second getting.
Isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? I mean, every day it seems like somebody else has come down with COVID or somebody else has tested positive. People that were heading to the plane tested positive, so don't get on the plane. People are over there and they're testing positive. I'm friendly with Keith Jones, not the hockey player, the other Keith Jones, and he's over there for NBC 10. And they have to quarantine for 15 days in their hotel before they could even really get started. So they went over early enough to do that. But it's like a ghost town. Is there a single event that you give a flying patootie about in the Summer Olympics right now that you can sit there and go, God, I can't wait to watch blank?
No.
Me neither. Not a damn one. And I just saw this morning that, Mike Scioscia's the coach of the baseball. That's nice. Oh, Don Staley's the coach of the women's basketball. That's nice.
I didn't even realize that baseball was back as an Olympic sport. It was gone for like a year, wasn't it?
I'm glad I could help. Yeah, Scioscia's coaching the Olympic baseball team.
Who's on the team?
Beats the hell out of me. All I know is Mike Scioscia. Delco. Delco, baby.
Oh, right. There's
Todd Frazier is on there because he's been cited on the boardwalk a few times.
Right. There's like a lot of former players that retired and just decided to go be on the Olympic team.
Now, what's funny is those players will probably go win a gold and be amazing, but then the NBA players will stink.
Yeah. By the way, the NHL regular season schedule, PT, will be released on Thursday. It includes a 3-week Olympic and All-Star break.
Oh, so the Olympics are coming back for the NHL. Fine.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
I could do without.
I don't know. I don't have to travel.
The great Olympic story of the USA beating Russia again.
You were never going to get that anyway. On either side, there's no hockey team on the amateur side. And they weren't really amateurs. The Russians were basically pros anyway. They were getting paid.
That's my point. Those countries will still continue to use their professionals, but we've lost that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the Cinderella story aspect of it. I just, I like hockey in the Olympics. I'm sorry, I'm not a figure skating guy. It's not the drama for me. And I'm not really a gymnastics guy either. Maybe I'm anti-Olympics. I don't know what the hell's happening to me as I get older. But
all right.
Yeah. Got anything else?
Yeah. Josh tells me the big names on the USA baseball is Todd Frazier, Edwin Jackson, Scott Kazmir.
Oh, Kazmir.
Robertson, the former Philly. Who didn't do anything. Suns and Bucks tonight.
Yeah, and you think it's over and there's not going to be any more basketball. I heard you talking about this on my way to the doctor, and I think that there will be a Game 7. I think that it's going back. I understand it's the nice and neat thing to say that the Bucks are going to wrap it up and they're going to be at home, and trust me, it's going to be insane in that building. I absolutely know that. I have a couple friends from Milwaukee and from Wisconsin that are going bananas on their Facebook pages with old pictures of like Lou Alcindor and the warm-ups that he wore, when they won it in 71. I'm sorry. I just, the way this series has gone and the way that they stack up on both sides, I absolutely think, and the NBA doesn't want it to end tonight. They want to keep, cranking the cash cow.
I think there might be a part of the NBA that's ready for this season to end and then to move on to the next post-COVID seasons and trying to get back to some normalcy.
Just be over. Well, I'm just going on the record. I think the Suns win tonight. I think there is a Game 7.
All right. I have the Bucks tonight.
Okay.
All right, Peter.
The usual bet, Mortimer?
Sure. What's that?
$1. You've never seen Trading Places?
No. You know what I watched last night? Actually, I watched it 2 nights ago. We didn't finish it, so we finished it last night.
Which is?
Truman Show.
Oh, Truman Show's great. Cue the sun. You should watch, if you can handle it, you should watch Dr. Death on Peacock Network. It is excellent. It's really, really good. It's you know
what I watched the other night on Sunday?
The
history of the sitcom episode.
Oh, yeah. I've been DVRing those, so it's in my queue. I haven't watched it, but it's in there. They're not bad. They get a little too, but they're not bad.
It's a little like, I don't know, they move through things very quickly,
yeah,
and then Friends, and then this show, and then that show.
Right. They don't devote. I mean, there's a whole bunch of shows out there that they don't even touch. So that's,
you would like this on the Vice network,
right?
It is Dark Side of 90s TV. It was like the whole behind the scenes of like the Jerry Springer show.
Oh yeah, I think you told me about this. I'm gonna have to look that one up. But just make sure you tell your girl. Dr. Death, it's on the Peacock Network. It's based on a real story of a doctor in Texas that literally was killing his patients.
On purpose?
Well, who knows what his motivation is, but he's, trust me.
You think he would get a bad Facebook review and people would stop going back?
This was way before Facebook.
Doctor killing people.
This was way before Facebook.
Well, I sent my family member there, didn't make it.
I mean, I'll tell you the actors, but I don't know that you'll know who they are. Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek and other stuff. He plays Dr. Christopher Dunch. He's amazing. Alec Baldwin and Christian Slater play a pair of doctors that are trying to like shut this guy down, like get him flagged. Like, come on, how much is enough? Enough's enough. So Dr. Death, Peacock Network, check it out.
I heard the Peacock Network had some troubles on us.
Oh, dude, that's my one beef about it. You know, they screwed up the WW whatever F is it called? E? What are they now?
Yeah,
they screwed up the money in the case or whatever that thing was. I saw that all over social media, and then this thing, you know, Look, if you're paying for a streaming service or you have that, you shouldn't ever see a commercial ever. There's a reason Netflix is so wonderful and it just automatically goes into the next episode. Here, it comes up and it's like Dr. Death, and you're like, great. And then all of a sudden, they're showing the ads for Verizon. And I'm thinking, like, come on. What is this?
I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Sorry we can't go longer.
Sure you have. What do you have? Why don't you ask me a couple questions?
Well, what do I have for you? I don't really have a lot of questions for you. I know you're going out of state, right?
I'm leaving on Thursday.
Good luck to that. And I guess I don't have a lot of questions. I mean, you asked me how I thought the Phillies are going to go through this tough portion of the road trip. They don't play well in New York usually, so I could just as easily see them fall flat on their face. It's just that I'm going to be watching one way or the other.
Okay, well, this one when I volleyed it back to you, it didn't go so well.
Well, I'm not used to that. I'm not. What questions do I want me to ask you?
Hey, by the way, how was the what's it called? The fishing tournament.
That was outstanding, and the poor guy didn't have a lot of voice. Todd Roy came on, but I love the fact that they're coming back again for another year. You and I both know that, like, hopefully Jordan's boat's in it again because that created excitement. I think it's only going to get better. You know, when you do something for the first year, you think you have an idea how it's going to go, and then you're putting out fires left and right, you know?
Now,
so I think it was great. Now,
the Schweimer said that he had reached out to you about doing some being part of the lifeguard race broadcast, and he said you declined.
I decline more because of the time. You know, there's many times that like I can do a 20-minute segment with you at 5:00, but to get myself from Galloway all to the Longport Beach, the Sea Isle Beach, wherever it is, down by the water, find a place to park, get myself out there. I'm sorry. I'll gladly listen to Billy's interviews, and I will retweet, repost, and watch everybody's stuff they put on social media. God bless them all.
Okay. All right, Peter.
All right, Michael. Have a good one.
See ya. Pete Thompson, Tuesday with Thompson here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage in South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up. Visit them online at clarksmoving.net. At the PT973, give him a follow on Twitter. If you're watching the live video, you see PT's got his Greg Norman hat on. And we're back with more Sports Bash on the way. Don't go away. Sports Bash 97.3, ESPN, and the free mobile app. All right, Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill, taking you till the top of the hour tonight at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Sports Pass brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open in the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. So I wanted to play a couple more of these Dave Dombrowski bites for you guys out there. It was a good podcast with John Clark called The Takeover over at NBC Sports Philadelphia. I thought this was an interesting one. And he was asked if he looked at this team as an underachieving team. I want you to hear his answer, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts after it.
Well, I wouldn't say we've underachieved. We're sitting here at 500. I think we're better than a 500 team personally. I think we've played much better here recently over the last 15, 20 games. So we've been playing better. I think we're in a position, we are contending. As we're doing this interview, we're 2.5 games out of first place. We have a chance to win. We legitimately have a chance to win. We have to do the little things right. We have to advance runners, get runners in from third base. We have to be in a position, and we have cut down our strikeouts a great deal. We have to make the routine plays from a defensive perspective.
He said, I don't think we're an underachieving team. I guess are the Phillies an underachieving team? And I guess the answer to that would essentially be no, they're not an underachieving team when you think about this roster. But on the flip side, you would say, yeah, I think they're an underachieving team because, quite frankly, you shouldn't be in position to blow 22 saves. Again, I hate to say, well, if you cut that in half, but if you cut that in half, this team's in first place by a long margin. Can you imagine if this team had 11 more victories? 11. And it's fair to say, because a lot of these have been big. Like, I wonder how many games they have blown the lead when it's been 3 or more runs. That I need to find out. Let's say it's 11. I don't know what the answer is. 11 more wins puts them at 58 wins right now. 58 wins would be second best in baseball with the Dodgers. They have 22 blown leads. So I'm not asking that you save every single one of them. But how many of the 22 blown saves, right, have been with not double-digit leads, but 3 or more? I mean, same story as last year, we know. But they are really bad so far this year. Historically bad again this year. If they have 22 blown saves this season, right? And they are 3 away from the franchise record. No other team in baseball has more than 16 blown saves. They have 22. They're 16-13 in one-run games going back to the All-Star break. So are they underachieving? I think he's right by saying no, because he knows his bullpen stinks. But it's almost unfathomable to believe that his bullpen would be this bad again. It's like unfathomable to think, hey, we knew we were going to be this bad in the bullpen again, and that's why I don't think we've underachieved. I'm trying to find how many saves they have blown where they've had a 3-run lead or more. Because to me, that is unacceptable. That is why it is so hard to believe in this team. But it is fixable. It is fixable. And I know that sounds crazy because they haven't been able to do it. They haven't been able to find guys to help the bullpen. But as Dave Dombrowski said, right, in the podcast, he brought this up in their podcast, which was he thinks that the bullpen could be fixed internally.
Ranger Suarez has been outstanding for us. I mean, if you acquired somebody and you said they were putting up the numbers that Ranger Suarez have put up so far this year, you'd be ecstatic. So I think that we can close internally, and there are very few closers that would be out there that would be available that would be tremendous upgrade over what we had. I think our bullpen is starting again to settle in a little bit more with Suarez out there, Bradley stepping up, Neris in a different position, Alvarado hopefully throwing more strikes, but some of those other guys have helped us a great deal.
So I'm going to just take his side in this one. I don't know that I agree with him, though. In fact, I don't agree with him. But he said, we need help internally. He said, if you had Ranger Suarez, if you got Ranger Suarez, right, in a trade with another team, they gave you Ranger Suarez, and they had his numbers, you would say, we got a good one. He's not wrong. Ranger Suarez numbers are great. 122 ERA, 081 whip, 39 strikeouts in 37 innings. If somebody gave you that player, you'd say, I got a stud. And because he came from another team, you'd be like, this guy must be really good. So I'm going to give him that. He talked about how Archie Bradley's been better. He's right. His ERA is down to 3.28. The whip's still a little high. But he's pitched much better since he's come off the disabled list, the injured list, and he has pitched better like for the 2 weeks after he came off the injured list. But the guy for me is Bailey Falter. He pitched well again the other night. I know his ERA is not great, but the whip is very good. The strikeouts are very good. I think he's a guy that they need to put in more high-leverage situations and utilize him more. I like him. Another guy I'm intrigued by is Christopher Sanchez, 2.08. The strikeouts, 4 and 4 innings. So there you go. Can they find another guy? Can they get another guy in a trade? Alvarado, I don't trust. 47 strikeouts is great in 34 innings. The walks are too many, 29. Connor Brogdon, to me, is the difference maker. If they could get one other bullpen arm in here, that, to me, clinches a change in feeling for me. What do I mean? The 22 blown saves can't happen. If I just cut them in half, that's all I need to do. If I'm better in my bullpen in the second half, the Phillies win the division. That's what it comes down to. Do I trust that they'll get it right? I'm not sure I'm there yet. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Game night's coming up with Brian Toporek at 6:20, the NBA writer from Forbes. Check him out. He's always really good. We've got a lot going on the rest of the week here. Tomorrow, our good friend Jason Fitz, Mike McGarry, will try to get the rank report back. He was on vacation last week. That's why we missed the rank report last week. I know a lot of people ask me, hey, what happened to Todd? He was on vacation last week. It's the summertime, man. All right, here we go. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. All right, Sports Bash. I can dig it. I can dig it. I can dig it. Don't forget, game night's coming up next. Josh is Brian Toporek. Now, Brian Toporek wrote something the other day that was of interest to me.
What is that?
I got to bring it up here.
Because he writes a lot of things. So I need more detail.
Yeah, no, you're right. And he wrote this for Forbes. I think, let me see if I can find it. Let me go to his Twitter handle here real fast.
B. Toporek on Twitter.
Yep. It was something to do with
Twitter handles are the modern version of phone numbers. Back in the day, we could memorize phone numbers. Now I memorize people's Twitter handles.
Yeah, I was reading this because I was like, oh, this would be something interesting to talk about. And I think is he on normally on Tuesdays or something?
It's just he's been available weekly. So he keeps telling me, come on. I'm like, well, you want to come on? He's like, sure.
Yeah, no, he does a good job. Here it is. It was July 17th, so this was like 3 days ago. With Damian Lillard's future more uncertain than ever, I wrote at Forbes why the Sixers shouldn't be rushing into a Ben Simmons trade this offseason.
Yeah, Brian has taken the position multiple times, at least with me on game night and on his podcast, the NBA podcast, that he doesn't want the Sixers trading Ben Simmons for the sake of trading Ben
that's
Simmons.
A smart decision. I mean, most people who cover the NBA would say the same thing. You're not just trading Ben Simmons for the sake of trading Ben Simmons. Most fans think differently. They're just tired of Ben Simmons.
And as Brian and I have talked about before, before and after what Lillard said last week, Lillard said himself, I never asked for a trade request. Don't believe those reports. I don't know what my future holds, but I haven't asked to be traded. I want to win in Portland. And
admirable.
Toporek has said multiple times, I don't understand why people keep chasing this golden goose that is Lillard when he's not even available.
Well, if there's a sliver of hope that he's available, teams should be making the calls.
Well, they should be making the call anyway, just in case. You want to be first in line, don't you?
Right. That's why, and there's certainly when they lost again, when they got knocked out in the first round, the next day, it's like, how much longer can he put up with this? How long is it till you say? Now, it's funny because, on the other side, I would say, be the guy that says I can win in Portland because of me.
Like Giannis did in Milwaukee.
Right. But there's almost a part of me that doesn't think that Portland can do it. Yeah.
It's funny because
I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place on that one.
Well, I know that Lillard met with the new head coach and the GM before Team USA left for Japan. So apparently that was supposed to discuss what their plans are for the offseason. And I have to believe that Lillard, based on what he said to the media, that he went to that meeting and said, you know what, I'm watching the NBA Finals, and I saw that Milwaukee found a way to get this done. Why can't we do that?
Well, how differently are they from Milwaukee? Chris Middleton, and they have CJ McCollum, right? So their next guy is like Brooke Lopez and Pat Connaughton. They're not much different.
Well, they need a Drew Holiday.
Well, they need a Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday, one or the other.
Right.
Because Holiday is a good defensive player and McCollum is not.
Correct.
They have Covington is a good defensive player, but not on the perimeter against guards.
Right. Well, they need somebody who's going to be that third scorer.
Right. So could they bring in, I don't know, Tobias Harris, although we know that he's not a number 2 scorer, but if it's CJ McCollum and Tobias Harris is the third guy with Dame Lillard.
I mean, theoretically that would work for Portland. I know a lot of Sixer fans who hate Tobias who would love to see him gone.
I don't hate Tobias. I just we're realizing he's not the number 2 guy. That's
exactly
the problem. Happy 25th birthday, Ben Simmons.
It's a nice picture on television.
They're wishing him happy birthday on Pardon the Interruption. All right, pardon this. I'm out.